Yo, yo, what's up? What's up,
Hey,
y'all? Happy spooky season. Happy Spooktober. Everybody,
Spooktober,
we got
yeah.
we got a special treat tonight. We got Jay and Jamie here who invented Spooktober. So we got four we're going to be going over four not really Halloween movies tonight, but they're spooky
They're
nonetheless.
horror. They're one of them was almost unwatchable. It's horrific.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty terrifying. These are more than horrifying Halloween horror hotel movies. So tonight, y'all, we're gonna be doing The Invitation, The Menu, Cheeseburger, The Menu, Fresh, and Get Out. And of course, Jay and Jamie have Jay's talked about The Invitation on the stream. I don't think you guys have done Get Out. You've done The Menu and Fresh. I don't think you've done Fresh. But this one is Jamie. I liked it the other night. You called it Flesh, which was an appropriate accident. So where you guys want to start? You want to start with the Invitation?
Yeah.
So this movie came out in 2015, and there's two movies, The Invitation. Both are one's a kind of a cheesy vampire, Netflix movie, but this one is pretty good. This one came out in 2015, and it's got the Walmart Tom Hardy in it.
He does
and
look like him. He looks like a guru, Tom Hardy.
Yeah, well,
He does.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
so
if Tom Hardy was from Esalen, that would be that guy.
right, and the first thing off the bat with this movie is that like there are common themes and common things amongst the
It's
movies.
Tom Hardley. Hardly.
Yeah.
Come on, that was too easy.
Okay.
Instead of Tom Hardy, it's Tom
Yeah,
Hardy.
and it's the dude from that movie Upgrade, right? You covered Upgrade. And so the one of the things in this movie is that, not to skip to Flesh, but that the aesthetic is kind of the same, right? So it's like you get an invitation to the horror hotel, right, which is this weird dinner party, and he drives up, and the same thing happens when he's going to the party as happens in Get Out, which is like he's driving there and he runs over an animal, right? So
Mhm.
and so it sort of sets the theme for the rest of the movie. And in this one, it's a coyote, right? And he has to put the coyote out of its misery. And then he shows up at the party, right? And immediately when he walks in, there's a group of like, it's very odd. It's a very odd feeling when he walks in, because like the vampirical Lana Del Rey woman walks down the stairs, and she's got like vampire teeth, but not vampire teeth. And then there's a guy who kind of looks like him, a beardy guy who kind of looks like him. And but like, have you ever been to a dinner party and you walk in and they're like, "Greetings, it's so good to see you," and they hug you? It's very,
Well,
it's very weird.
I thought maybe you picked all of these because of the theme of food, but then I
Mhm.
realized Get Out doesn't really have a food theme, but it
Yeah,
still fits with the invitation to a weird sort of party setting meal. So I guess
yeah,
overall it fits. Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
it's already horrific because it's his old home, and the party is being thrown by his ex-wife, and he's bringing
mhm.
his new girlfriend, so that adds an extra
He's like, "You want to
layer
come
of
to the cuck dinner? You
yeah.
want to come to the cuck dinner? We got fresh duck for cuck."
She's like, "This ain't gonna be no cookout," right? And it's the same as Get Out, because there's an obvious relationship that's different, and they walk in, and there is like this sort of like, who's the alpha of this house a couple times in this movie, right? He makes it clear like, this was my home, and then the other guy's like, this is my home now, and I
Right.
run things a little differently here.
But it was
In
always her home because her parents were the one with the money, so
right,
And then
yeah. So
he flashes back to the having a son, so he's traumatized by the loss of the son, and now he's having to deal with his ex basically being there with some new dude.
yeah, so the setup for people who haven't seen this, because I probably people have seen this the least out of these four, or maybe Fresh, but this movie kind of I thought it was pretty revelatory. I mean, it's crazy because when you walk, you're with the Tom Hardley guy, because he's suspicious, like, of the little things that you would be suspicious of when you go in the house. So you're kind of, you're looking at it from his perspective, like including when he goes in and the guy locks the door and then removes the key from the inside of the door, which is very odd, right?
Mhm.
Like, why? But he actually he like questions him. He's like, why are you doing that? What are you doing? And he's like, well, we run things a little differently here. And then all the people show up. So it's the guy goes to the house and he's meeting a group of friends like from his old life. And I guess what we find out is that they're all drawn to this house and this party because it's weird because it's a birthday party, it's a dinner party, it's like a reunion, right? And then we find out that there's a sales pitch. There's sort of a sales pitch, and they bring that up. So at what point when you guys were watching this, were you like, "Oh, this is a cult"? I mean, was it early
Well,
on?
I think I found this film around the time that it came out, searching for movies about cults. So I was kind of
Wow.
spoiled by the way I searched for it because so I knew it was going to be about a cult. But I liked because I didn't really know what kind of a cult. Are we going to get
Yeah.
like a Jeffrey Badonkadonk eating people cult? Are we going to get like a Heaven's Gate? And what we end up getting is a Heaven's Gate meets Scientology kind of blend here. So I like the way they played on like it's sort of like a new age Instagram guru, man, but
Mhm.
also kind of Scientology, kind of Heaven's Gate ish. And I like how for a good while we don't know, even as things are getting a little more weird and they have these weird kind of views about death and death being an illusion. You still don't feel like they're a malicious, nefarious cult. You think they're kind of benign. And so I love the buildup in this film to where by the time of the actual dinner party, that guy starts to realize the psychological doubt element was good too, because he's in a position where he's kind of off base and off kilter because it's an awkward situation being there with his new girlfriend at his old wife's house. So he keeps feeling like he's the problem. And it's almost like the cult knew that he would be in this weak state by which he could then be recruited, being in this off kilter, weak, self-doubt state that he's in. But he
Yeah.
keeps doubting himself. But eventually he's like, no, wait a minute. This shit's just getting too weird.
Well, it's
Yeah.
funny. Oh,
No, go ahead, Jamie.
it's funny because they're acting culty the first time you meet him. I mean, she comes down the stairs in this flowy white dress and she's
Yeah.
like, hello, and her name is Eden, and they're like
Right.
very lovey-dovey, and then you see this like weird naked girl down the hallway,
Yeah.
right, Sadie, and it's like, is this a cult or is it just LA? Because this is how people in LA act. Like this could be
Right.
any normal dinner party in Los Angeles,
True.
right?
Yeah, when they walk in and the new husband or whatever goes up and hugs the girl, he has this look and he's like, "What?" It was an awkward. It was too much for meeting her at this party, right? And then when he's standing there, I liked how, like you said, like you don't know whether something's obviously wrong, right, with him, because he looks broken, and you can tell from his, he's got this bushy look, and they bring that up when he gets a lot of the things that you think when you're watching a movie that you want to comment on, they actually bring up in the movie, and I thought that was pretty clever, and that's a way of like sort of misdirecting the audience to what you were just saying that, oh no, these are just normal things, right? Because they get there and one of the there's a Skittles couple there and the guy goes up and he's like, oh, this bushy beard, and we know that's not his life, and then we get flashbacks to his life. But like the moment where I knew that it was wrong was, number one, she comes down and she's dressed like Lana Del Rey, and she's got these weird, her teeth are like, she's got fangs, like more than a normal human being, and she's very smiley. And then he turns and he's like, and he looks and he sees Sadie Atkins in the other room with no pants on, right? And she's not just a naked girl; she's like got a top on but no pants, and you're like, what? And his expression is like, there's something wrong here. And then when they go in the kitchen, right, and he's talking to his ex-wife, and then there's the kind of tubby guy in there. And then she slaps him, right? Which is kind of we're getting initiated right into the ritual here. So she slaps him and she's like, that's why no one ever takes you seriously, because you think everything's a joke. And it's an audible slap. And he comments on that. He's like, that was an audible slap. That was hard. And then, so they go in and they're talking and they're sitting around, right? And then we get more guests introduced. So they're not the last guests. There's already people there. But when I really knew this was going to go bad was when Mr. Jingles shows up. Okay, who is John Carroll Lynch, the gigantic dude, the bald donut head dude who plays the bad guy in Zodiac. You know, he at the end of Zodiac, remember, he's the guy. They go, Jake Gyllenhaal walks in and he's like, I think you're the Zodiac. And the guy's like, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And he plays Mr. Jingles in that. In that, I just did an analysis of the Final Girl. And I don't watch American Horror Story, but there's one season I watch because it's about Richard Ramirez. And that guy plays the serial killer, Mr. Jingles. So I knew when he showed up. And even when he shows up, the main guy is like, who the fuck is this? I mean, who's this guy? What are you doing? And he hardly talks. So then, they're sitting around talking, I guess. And then they are drinking wine. We see some flashbacks to his former life. We know that he had a son, and they had a life together. And then they start talking about like trauma, right? And it's like the sales pitch. And
that's what I was saying. The cult waits until you're in a weak space from trauma to seize upon you.
Every room in the house is a trigger for him, and he has the flashbacks, the PTSD flashbacks, and so it's already a haunted house for this guy.
It is. That's a good point. Yeah, including like false doors, right? There's a door that's been removed. Now it's a wall. He has the image of like there's this, it's a husband and wife in a bath together, right? And it's a kind of a weird scene because then like the son comes in, but then he comments on, he's like, okay, that's the moment when the son walked in and their mom and dad were being freaky. That's going to traumatize him, and so his former life was like fun, and he had birthday parties and all this stuff. And then we see that his son has died of some accident, like at a birthday party. There's he got piñataed or something. And it's terrible, but time has passed. And then when they're at when they're sitting around and they say, oh, is this a sales pitch? You guys are in a cult. And the cult they bring up was the one you guys talked about in The Americans. I think it was in The Americans. Remember, he goes to is it EST? The EST. It was that thing in the 80s, the Earhart.
Werner Earhart's Est. Yeah.
The Est. That's right. Yeah. So they even bring that up. They're like, is this Est? What is this? And they say, oh, there's this thing and it's called The Invitation. That's the name of the movie. And so The Invitation is a thing that we now know is popular, like in LA. And they're like, oh, there's a lot of people that are members and you guys wouldn't even realize how many people are members, which is foreshadowing for the future. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's when Mr. Jingles stands up and says, I had a wife. She made abstract modern art that was electric, and I knew I loved her. And it's very weird because I guess you don't expect him to be so like sensitive. But then they do the thing that we're going to see in Get Out, which is they show an old grainy video.
Mm-hmm.
And they, what did you think of the video that they show?
I liked it. It was like cheesy, but also seemed kind of authentic, like the type of thing that you would watch if you were being introduced to, some kind of, is this like multi-tiered marketing or is this a cult? What?
Well, did you catch that it all started in Mexico?
I didn't remember that now.
Yeah.
So a lot of people go down to South America and Mexico for enlightenment in ayahuasca and peyote,
Brujos.
and to have your mushrooms or like whatever trip and come back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So they're down in the valley in Mexico having these weird,
that's right.
pervert ceremonies while Tristan is up on the mountain looking down.
Right. Tristan's still there watching him. He's watching like a pervert.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and the thing they bring up about Mexico is like, they go, so the one guy says, so what really happens in Mexico? And they're like, oh, anything you want, you can have anything you want. And the one girl kisses. So we've had it's like, it's a initiation, right? So there's a slap and then there's a kiss. So the girl kisses the other girl and she's like, oh, I think I like that. Now we can be free to do whatever we want. And then somebody busts out some cocaine at one point and the girl says, bust it out. And then we see the cult guy who's a, kind of average looking guy, but he's got Marshall Applewhite eyes and he's in a circle like in trees. Yeah. And then he says, he gives all the terms, right? He's like, they say, well, it's much more grounded than est, but it's also spiritual,
Yeah.
right? And then what happens? Oh, then we see the video of the death. They show a video of a woman dying, and they're like at her bedside. And that's very bizarre, because when you're watching it, you can't really tell, is this woman dying, or are they just like sitting at
Right.
her bedside?
Or did they euthanize? Was there like a willful choice? You don't really know. And if I remember, doesn't he say that death is an illusion? Isn't that part of the?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they say pain is optional.
Pain is optional. And
Right.
this reminds me of like a lot of these new age gurus actually say this. People don't know this, but we did a stream about Teal Swan, and she's had a lot of controversy because she actually says, death is just an illusion. If you unalive yourself, you're just entering into a new state of being and coming back. Right. So she kind of actually teaches this. A lot of the other gurus teach it too. So it's fitting because it's a popular guru idea.
Didn't that guy, John of God, go to Mexico and South America a lot?
I don't know about Mexico, but he was in, I think, Peru, and he was convicted recently for trafficking. And I think they gave him like 100 years in jail.
Yeah, they also bring up science. Remember when they're in the kitchen, she says, oh, it's very scientific because, your pain is just neurons, and you choose where to channel your pain. And it becomes, when the dinner plays into this later, because I started to think, is this going to be an eat the pain, guy ceremony where what's going to happen here? And the pain thing plays, first it's an emotional pain, right? And it's a mental pain. And then it's a physical pain, but it's painless because we watch the woman pass away. And when you're watching again, you can't really tell if they're euthanizing her, what they're doing. But it's weird because the Applewhite guy, like, she's dying, and he like looks up like while she's dying, and he's like, can't you see? It's painless. Look, now she's gone away and she's in all of us. And when they end the video, the like, people have they're normal people, at least at this thing. Not everybody is in this cult, because one of the girls is like, what the fuck? What was that? Why would you show that? And then the Tom Hardy guy says, you think that's a good idea to show that at a dinner party? I'm just questioning that. What's the deal here? And the main guy, he was like a tech guru, guy or whatever, the new replacement bearded guy, is like, well, you can choose to take this seriously or whatever. So now they're full on like in the pitch. And we know that Mr. Jingles is going to be the enforcer of this thing, because he's the big guy that shows up. And because then the woman who was trying to have a conversation with him on the stairs says, you know what, I'm going to go. And what did you guys, when I was watching I just rewatched it this afternoon. When I rewatched it, I thought, good for you. Get out, get out, whatever it takes to get out.
Yeah.
But are they going to let her go? And the movie did a really clever job of last minute things where, is she going to get away? Because they try, oh, why don't you stay? Just stay a little longer. And then finally the dude's like, just let her go or whatever. And then they unlock the door. She walks out. And then, of course, the enforcer stands up and says, I'm going to walk her to her car. And you're like, no, don't let Mr. Jingles walk you to your Prius. It's a bad. And so he walks out. He's very, and he backs up, and the guy's standing there watching through the window. Right. And then we're like, okay, she got away. But at the last minute, he's like, oh, Linda, hold on, I forgot. And then he gets taken away from the window. So I thought, this is the moment where he kills her in the car, right? He's not going to let her get away. And then he comes back in like nothing happened. But they're all, it's this thing of like, it's like total gas. It's actual gaslighting at the place. They're playing on your fears. They're, subverting your expectations.
And she had bars put on all the windows, so you can't get out. So like there's the added layer of like claustrophobia or
yeah, you're going to be forced to make a decision tonight, whether you accept the pitch or whether you try to fight.
Right.
We're getting more and more intimations that it's about to be a dang brawl up in here.
Right. Which is what happens in the next movie we're going to cover. Oh, everyone's here is going to die tonight. Right. So, but what's the reason she gives for the bars? She's like, oh, this is oh yeah, he says, Oh no, we're in Laurel Canyon, and we had some dangerous psychopaths break in here last week, and into a house around here, and kill a bunch of people at Cielo Drive. It was very weird. And then the other guy's like, "Oh, he's lying." Right. So it's made up. But like you said, it's claustrophobic, and the aesthetic of this place is the exact same as in Fresh, where it's like muted and flesh colored, red and yellow.
I'm just trying to turn the fan on. It's hot in here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting steamy. It's getting steamy at this dinner. So then I guess, go ahead, Jamie.
I just said it's too hot in the kitchen. Stupid joke.
Yeah. So then they go up and they have dinner, and we get the food scene, right? And before that, he had gone snooping through the rooms, and he went straight to the drawer where he knew the pills would be, right? And he found the pills, and then he showed them to the doctor, and he's like, "What are these pills?" And the guy's like, "Oh, you've been rifling through the drawers. Oh, don't worry, it's phenobarbital. It's nothing." Right. Right. I guess the turning point, the Volta, the change, is when he sees them drinking the wine, and he slaps the wine out of their hands, and he's like, "Don't drink the wine." So now he's broken character, right? He's full on going to ruin the dinner. And then we see, I guess, what happened. One of the women like OD'd at the table.
Did you notice it was Rothschild wine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also so they're putting they poisoned somebody, right? That's
Yes.
why that's what I thought. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yes, they were like, "Oh, it's our child wine. It only costs $33 million a bottle," which again happens in the menu, not with the our child wine, but with a different wine. It's a vintage. It's the only row of grapes, so they have exclusive access to all the Epicurean things at the dinner. And then he breaks character, and then even at that point, they're like, "It's fine, and then that's when Sadie goes nuts and loses her. She, by the way, has like intense crazy eyes. The Sadie character, "You're ruining everything," right? And goes and claws at his face.
Are we supposed to think that Sadie was brought back from Mexico to be with the couple from the cult and be like a throuple, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah,
because that's how they were acting. She was very huggy and lovey-dovey.
Well, she confronts him at the pool outside. Remember, she's like, "You can kiss me if you want," and he's like, "No."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, you can do creepy things to me," and he's like, "Get off." Right.
Yeah. No, that's
like, "No, I want you to."
That's how cults recruit people.
Love bombing and sex bombing. Exactly.
Yeah, I knew a couple guys who went to go be in it's called the 12 Tribes, I think. Some weird cult in California, because they were promised pretty girls, and the pretty girls kept inviting them. They're like, "Yeah, this girl's gonna be my girlfriend."
Let me guess, they didn't get it.
I never heard from them again.
Maybe they did get it. Maybe they got the pretty girls.
Like, it's still a mystery.
Was it in a redwood forest? The 12 tribes. You can become a tree, man. They became trees, which is what they wanted. Yeah. So they're at the dinner, and she attacks him, and then he's like, "Step off," he throws her, and then she gets cracked on the head on the corner of the thing, and then the doctor starts resuscitating her, and then Zuckerberg or whatever comes in and smokes him, right? Shoots the guy in the back. And then Mr. Jingles, who's very calm at this point, he's like, "Give me the gun. Just give me the gun." And then they start stabbing people, and then all hell breaks loose, right? So then it becomes a real like Cielo Drive
Manson style murder.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing too that except for Get Out, meals traditionally have a religious significance. Meals are always, like in biblical religion, meals are covenantal, and so you're not just having a meal with friends or whoever. It's the God or the deity is also a part of the meal, and so meals are always seen as religious, and so that's why it's interesting that in this situation, the invitation is not just to have food, it's actually to a new covenantal meal where you're essentially going to be uniting yourself to. And so I think there's actually, when they show the red wine, it's actually an invitation like the Lord's Supper, right? A kind of covenantal blood meal. Again, that's all symbolic, that it's not going to just be blood symbolically in the cup. It's going to be blood spilled tonight.
Yeah.
And
And
in paganism too, you would often offer
or
food to
consume
your
the
idols.
god, or you're
Yeah.
eating the god to have life from the god.
Well, the whole tribe would bring their offering to the idol, and then they would give it to the
priest,
and he would take it into the fetish or whatever.
Yeah.
And then behind closed doors, all the priests have they eat the food, basically, on behalf of the god.
Exactly.
I'm trying to think how many characters there were. Were there 12 or 13 characters in the dinner?
Not sure.
I think so. I think so. It wouldn't surprise me. He also, by the way, he went into one of his rooms, and it was the room where he imagined, his son was, and he sees this in the flashback. He sees his son playing with Dinobots, in the room, and then he lays down on the bed. He sees this vision of his son, and what gets inverted there is that he's reunited with his son in his memories, and he even smiles when he thinks of it, right? But what they want to do is go into the future to reunite with. That's their stated goal is, we'll see you soon, right? For those brief few electrical moments after you pass away into the starseed or whatever. But he goes and he goes and there's a computer, and he opens up the computer, and of course it's Marshall Applewhite giving directions to the guy. This is the night. This is the night you will transform, right? And he's like, this is not good.
Night.
Right? Yeah, it's 1997, 98, and it's Hail Bop. Put on your Nikes because tonight is the night. And so then he goes back in, and then they start, shooting and stabbing everybody, and then it becomes a run and hide, scenario, and you have to hide, and there's even they have a cinema upstairs, right? A little cinema room. They hide in there, so it's a meta, Mr. Jingles walks up the stairs, and he's holding his 38 like this. Where are they? And this was cool because he gets bopped over the head by the girlfriend, and that's unusual, right, in the movies. Not unusual for her character. She's gonna whoop that ass. So she takes care of Jingles, and then one of the Skittles guys takes care of the other guy, right? He stabs him at the foot of the stairs. But the twist was great, right? I mean, it's not really a twist, but he walks out in the backyard. Oh, another thing is that's common in all these movies. There's no cell phone reception, right? The menu, fresh, none of those. None of them had cell phone reception. So people listen.
Look, we were talking about in horror world. You might as well just forget it, because it doesn't matter whether it's Verizon or AT&T. Yeah. There's no service in horror world.
There are different markers that you can use to let you know if you're in a horror movie situation, and no reception is one of them. Greasy Last Chance Gas Station Man, Harbinger of Doom is another one.
Yeah, by the way, I saw Jamie Kennedy's he's doing a stand-up thing at a Halloween thing about how to survive in horror. So he's actually just doing a list of these things.
And once you realize you're in a horror movie, you better not do any of the big no-nos. You better not do drugs, no sex.
Let's split up.
No lying.
Let's split up.
Cheating, no cowardice.
Let's split up.
Yeah, no splitting up.
If you violate the 7 deadly sins, you're basically opening yourself up to the entities. But anyway, no entities in these movies, but there is the entity of the cult, basically.
Remember in Silver Bullet, in the Creeper King movie, Silver Bullet with Gary Busey, and it had the old coot, right? No, it was Children of the Corn. Yeah, they go on, and there's an old coot, fixing a car, and he's like, "Y'all need to get out of here." There's a lot of people listen to the guy.
Sign that we charge forward into
the go into the cornfield.
Old coot with crazy eyes.
Last chance gas,
do
baby.
Do not go that way.
Or in Maximum Overdrive. I think we got a situation here. That guy.
Did we have any warning signs? There was no last chance in. No, it wasn't his black girlfriend. Wasn't she like, this is kind of weird? Or was she the one saying, It's okay. It's okay.
Well,
I can't
she was
remember.
the first one to try and leave. Like, these people are cray.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
she had the sense, the red flags.
Yeah.
Well, when you're going to the party with her and you run over a coyote, it's time to turn around. That was the first
That's right.
harbinger. That was the psychopomp trying to
Yes.
tell you don't keep going, right? And
No.
she's like, we ran over a damn squirrel on the way. We got to turn around. And he's like, it's a coyote, because the same thing happens in Get Out, right? With the
Yeah.
friend who is
Right.
like, why are you going? He says, why are you going to meet the white people parents?
Mhm.
Don't go, right? And he's
Yes,
right.
he knew.
Yeah.
The same thing happens in Fresh, right?
Yeah.
There's the black bartender, and he's like, don't go there. So listen to the dude, right?
Yeah.
I guess that's the new replacement for the old coot,
Mhm.
right? Maybe that's the
Yes.
new archetype.
Yeah. Exactly.
Your suspicious black friend is
Mhm.
the replacement
Yes.
for old coot.
Yeah. But also, if you're going to go, bring them along, because they're going to handle business, right?
Right.
But at the end of the movie, right, he goes out into the backyard, and that was the place where the guy earlier had said, there's no reception, but try the backyard. That's the best. Don't go alone. But so he goes in the backyard, and the guy remember, he took a little moment and he hung up a little red lantern, which is very weird. I mean, it's not even Halloween. And he hung up a little red lantern all by itself in the backyard. And then they go into the backyard, and then they see red lanterns everywhere all over Laurel Canyon. And they hear hellish screams and helicopters. So everybody, I guess, in Laurel Canyon is like waiting for Hail Bob.
Everyone
So
in LA is in the cult.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's a great ending. So yeah, it was more of an apocalyptic thing. You think everything's just confined to this, snazzy Laurel Canyon weird house, but no, it's actually the cult is everywhere.
It reminded me of 2020, because the night that the things started in May and June, I mean, I went outside, and there was a cloud of smoke. I was in the city, right up from downtown on a hill, and I went out on the back balcony, and there was a giant cloud of smoke that came over, and I was like, what is this? And I heard helicopters, and then I heard like hellish screaming, and I got on Twitter.
2020. You talking about Big Nine?
This is 20. This was like early June. This was like May 31st, 2020, when everything started burning.
The Coof?
Yeah, but it was the riots, when the riots started.
Oh, okay.
So in Richmond, what happened was I thought, what's going on? So I got on Twitter, and a bus had been set on fire right down the street, and the smoke from the bus came over, and that's where one of the riots started.
Oh,
and then that went on for a month straight, like helicopters flying, screams, which is weird, because the reflection of the flames down a hill, like you can see it in the smoke cloud above the home. So, but anyway, it just, I guess it resonated, because at the end of the film, they go out and they see red. So there's murder, and they hear screaming, and they see a hillside, and it's like, oh, the world's burning in a different sense, but everything sort of changed. So that was the invitation. So we've been invited into the horror hotel here, where your destination is death, I guess. So what do you want to do next? The menu?
Yes.
Other way.
Because now that we've been invited, now it's time to go, because now we get another invitation.
Now it's time for a meal.
Dinner.
Time for the meal.
Yeah. Yeah. Eating is religious. You mentioned that.
Yeah, I just mentioned that. And this is interesting, because now we've got class warfare to a pretty heavy degree. This is my second time watching this film, and of course we did analysis with the Psyop Cinema guys, and they had a lot of good insights over there. And then rewatching it, I was able to notice a lot more of the symbolism and the class warfare that I didn't notice the first time. I don't know what you thought about that, because you and I haven't talked about this movie. What's your first thought on this?
Well, I think that the class warfare, is it's a clear. I mean, he makes that clear as they go on. You're either with the terrorists or you're with us, right?
And she's a working girl, and they make that clear in the movie. She's part of a working class.
Yeah, and he says, as one provider of experiences to another, I recognize a working person. But it's also interesting, because it's a take on the subversion from within of the elite system. Like they represent the different corners of the pyramid, right? There's there's entertainment, there's finance, there's there's a literary quality, there's cultural, there's all these different sort of, I guess, archetypes within the movie of these
Also,
people.
corporate conglomerates who own him. So he is the leader of this food cult, but he still has the boss and the people at the table work for his boss.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Who he's ready to kill, ready
Yeah.
to kill.
Yes.
So basically, I thought it was funny because Ray Fine plays this sort of Gordon Ramsay that's snapped, right? I mean, Gordon Ramsay's already kind of crazy, but we got like the celebrity, Hell's Kitchen psycho chef that basically snaps and is now a psycho serial killer, right? I mean, which is a good idea for a character, but it's a quasi cult. This is the other part that's odd to me was, how did he get all of these other food service people to be willing to die for his fire in the minds of chef revolution that he has, right?
It's very
like
campy.
It's fire in the minds of the serial killer chef, right?
Yeah.
Well, the other chefs are like, cadets.
And it's a boot camp. They live in a barracks.
And their whole life is preparing food for.
They live in a barracks on an island.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one was my favorite of these. I don't know about favorite, but I thought this one was the funniest of these movies because because Ray Fiennes is a great character in this, right? And it's a satire in a way, right? And his assistant, what's her name? Inga? No, Helga. It's something, I don't know. She's a little Japanese woman whose name is Inga, and the scene where he says initiate Operation Fallen Angel, and she looks in the window and she goes, right? And they lower the thing. But I can see this. It's outlandish, and you wonder, why are these people so into this and they'd be willing to die? But I don't think it is a stretch, but it's not up to that point. It's not too far because number one, I've worked in a restaurant with a chef who was like this. He was a Michelin guy. I lived in New York, and this guy was the most intense. I was just a bar back at this place, and it was off Herald Square in New York. But you would go in and you'd say, I don't know, table 12 is asking for their, steak or whatever. And he'd say, they're asking, like everything was intense. I mean, this guy was intense. It was absolute silence in the kitchen. And he was a very intense looking guy. And the way that they have their barracks, right, where they go back, there was something they said, they were like, what do you do for downtime? And she was like, downtime? There's no downtime, and the toilets are right there, and that was it's boot camp, but it's also like drama school. It's the same thing. The people are together all day, every day for years. And you get so into this thing where at English drama school, they tell you, the first thing they say is the main guy comes in, the old guy who owns the place. And he says, the main rule here is say yes to everything. It doesn't matter what it is. Right. I mean, it's very intense. And if you say anything like, what do you mean? Yeah. If you ask a question, he's like, are you ready to leave the country? It's like all or nothing. So they are willing to serve this guy he is at the top. But it also has like an initiation, they have to cross a boundary. They have to cross the water to get there. They get on their boat and go. And Nicholas Hoult, I thought was pretty good in this movie because he's so pathetic, right? And that right from the beginning. You're going to get the mouth feels, he says. And she says, don't say that.
Well, this is about like bourgeoisie delusion on one side and then like working class psychosis on the other side. So they both have their mental illnesses, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of it's a satirizing of a lot of things. It's a satirizing of a society that gets so affluent and wealthy that they're obsessed over, they're foodies, right? I mean, to be a foodie, which is what
there's a critic.
The Holt character is he the food writer.
No,
right?
The lady was the food critic.
Oh, that's right.
He's just a fan. He's just like a chef simp.
Yes.
Well, but he's a
he's
kind of a foodie, and that's why Yeah, that's why Ray Fine tells him to cook something, and he
Mhm.
fails at it, showing that he can't do it, right? But he's super just narcissistic, arrogant dude the whole time, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so that humiliation was to show him, hey, you don't actually have the skills that you do. But yeah, I think it's critiquing a society on a lot of levels, but there's also this sort of trauma involved in it where Ray Fine has snapped. And the idea, I think, is that you can have a society that gets so absurd and so affluent that everything becomes irrational and absurd.
And
And that causes people to snap.
they're super pretentious. Like they're like, we're eating the ocean.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yes. Yes. He says, it's oceanic, and he says it's amniotic, you would say. And she says,
Yeah.
"Oh, I think oceanic is better." Right? They're walking on the beach. Welcome to Hawthorne. Right. So they're in so with the Hawthorne, I thought, is this going to be, is this a horror theme? Is this, Nathaniel Hawthorne? Is this their upper class northeastern elites? But then, I was looking into the Hawthorne, right, Jamie? The
Mhm.
Hawthorne and what was the thing? What was the name of the wells?
Clutie Well.
Yeah. So
Hawthorne's Grove beside Clutie Wells, which
What
are
is
like
this?
holy springs of water.
yes. So the Hawthorne is in
Magic.
Robert Graves, right? It's in the White Goddess. And he talks about the Celtic like symbolism of the hawthorn. So the hawthorn is like the Druids thought that the hawthorn would bleed and scream at a holy site, which is kind of the same thing like they said about Mandragora, but the mandrake, right? But and they grow beside the Scottish Clutie wells,
Yeah.
right, which becomes the holy sites, like Christian holy sites. And then the Mayflower is a hawthorn. So Mayflower, I guess, and they're sort of on this island I took it that they were like in the Northeast. And so it's like you're going to a sacred place, right? But it's going to be barbed with characters that are, thorny, I guess.
Mhm.
And this isn't you kind of go into it thinking like this is the only time these people are going to this place and it's just this one event. But we learn that that's the restaurant and that they have exclusive events every now and again. Because the one guy who's the CEO guy, the old guy, has been there 11 times. He makes sure to tell him 11 times, right?
They reminded me of
11.
that couple from Gilligan's Island. Who are they? The
Yes, they
Thurston
did,
Howell.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
lady was Angela from Who's the Boss?
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
Angela, Samantha, Mona.
There you go.
Had to throw in a Tony Danza there for Angela's cameo.
And we get the finance bros, right? So the finance bros are Wall Street Silver or whatever is walking down the ramp, and they're like, "Bro, this is going to be a great thing. There's going to have some fucking food here or whatever." And they get on the ferry and they go over and then they turn out to. So we'll get there, I guess, about how it sort of turns. But when they walk into this, we obviously have these people are picked and they were invited, and we've got different levels, but we don't know about Anya Taylor-Joy. Right. And like you said in your stream, Jay, like she's in all these esoteric movies. She's in Split. She's in Last Night in Soho.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when she shows up, she says she's Margot and they're not expecting her. So something is off. There's always something off. Right.
Are we
And when
supposed to think that somehow Ray Fine picked the people because they had slighted him at some point in the past? Like these are specifically representative societal people that in his mind were the douchebags of society that slighted him.
They represented every group of.
I know that, but but how did he know to like figure out who that that the older guy was cheating with Anya Taylor-Joy because they'd come to eat there?
Because they were regulars, but they didn't appreciate him.
But I thought that was the first time Anya Taylor-Joy had been there because Ray Fine acted like she wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah. So everyone is picked, and he had his date, right, who was supposed to be picked, and she had been through. We don't know this. Like if we're looking at it through their eyes, the customers going there, we don't know that they've been through this vetting process going there. We just know that the other people are, oh, that's the 2 people, that's the 3 people, and they're big, and we're going to an exclusive event. But we don't know that they've been vetted, because when we get there, when Anya Taylor-Joy shows up, that's why it's a big, Ingy or whatever is like, this will have to do, and makes a big deal of it, but doesn't say. And then later, Ralph Fiennes goes through this. This is for the folks at home. Ralph Fiennes goes through this process of trying to figure out who she is and what she's doing there, why she doesn't belong. But we learned that the system of getting those people there is a kind of, it's almost like they have their own blackmail operation going on with
that's
those
what
people.
I was thinking. But
yeah,
but when the patties or cookies or pancakes or whatever there are with the tortillas with the images, were we supposed to think, right, that the older guy cheating on Samantha from Who's the Boss had been there with Anya Taylor-Joy, or was this at some other place?
No, he hadn't been there with her. It was that was their trysts.
I hired her in the past.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
And this this is a thing. Remember they bring this up in the movie. How did you know about this or whatever? And Inga says, here we know everything about our customers. And there's a thing in the food, upper echelons of the foodie thing. And it's called, they said it, even the pretentious name even matches what it is. And it's called dream catching. And dream catching is where the restaurant will tailor the specific experience to the tiniest whims of the elite going there. So they learn everything about their life. So they learn that, if Belinda Williams is going there, right, and he's a Dutch lord, they learn, oh, he loved truffles when he was 4. He had a dream about them. So then they provide these experiences for them.
Wasn't it the guy, I don't know his name, you said it, the guy from Renfield?
Nicholas Hoult.
Yeah, Nicholas
He had been in communication with Ralph Fiennes, getting these details set up. He said, we've been planning this for 8 months, remember?
Yes, that was it. And it was funny. It was, if he had said 9 months, it would have been, I guess, too obvious, right? Like he had birthed. This guy wanted a new he wanted a new daddy in the chef. But it's almost like that Nicholas Hoult was his mole, right? Or his, into these other people. Not like he would know about the lives of the other people, but he's his snitch, right? Everything you want to know is going to come from this guy, because he just wants to please Ralph Fiennes. And so over this 8-month process, it's like I'm birthing you as my son, and you get to emerge at the restaurant,
and then
as a new person.
Was given his chance, and he flubbed it, and that's why.
Yeah, and I thought that was particularly clever.
When he let him cook a meal.
Oh, okay.
And he totally messed it up.
Well, that was particularly clever because, and I didn't expect that, because he's so obsessed with food and the Epicurean experience of the food that I didn't even consider that he would want to cross over to the other side, which is the providing instead of taking, that he would actually give, that would even come up. But Ralph Fiennes was clever they were clever to make that one of the plot points, because nobody else was given, it's like they're on the other side of the divide and we witness them cook, but we're over here and you're over there. And by the way, it's obviously like a Gordon Ramsay character, right? And Nick Rochefort has all this good stuff about Gordon Ramsay, because Gordon Ramsay will go to fix these restaurants, right? And he'll insult them. He walks in and he'll insult them. And, this place is shit, right? And then they go, well, you can't talk to me like that. And he goes, I'm here to help you. Why are you going to talk back to me? But there've been a spate of people who he fixed the restaurant, and then the restaurant totally tanked. And then the people are no longer alive. It ruined their life, literally.
What?
There's 2 or 3. Yeah, there's 2 or 3.
A lot of those episodes, and they do have that arc. Like, he's like, I'm here to help, and then they're like, okay, and he gets in there and starts to fix things, and the people hate it, and they're like, we hate him. But then at the end, he turns it all around. They're all happy, and they're like,
yeah. So it's like the worst thing is Gordon Ramsay showing up to your restaurant, because even though it's shit, you're trying to poison me, right? It's like, well, they do have a clientele still, and the people are there. They're there for the terrible food, but at least they're there and they're paying.
Yeah.
So then he fixes up the restaurant, and then it becomes this place where people can't afford the new place, and it's on the Jersey Shore or whatever, and they don't want to pay for they want to pay for beef Wellington, right? And then 2 weeks after he's gone, it's a nice restaurant, and then it goes bankrupt, and then he's ruined their life because now they're in debt. So one of the dudes like jumped off a bridge.
Does he go and buy them then? The restaurant?
He's got a racket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, that's not. But he's not going to buy them if they're unsuccessful because the people won't shop there.
I heard the Gordon Ramsay restaurant in Las Vegas is really good.
I don't know anything about it.
Have you ever seen Gordon Ramsay's? Gordon Ramsay? There's another guy who's Gordon Ramsay's guy who this is the only man to ever make Gordon Ramsay cry. And he's a chef. He's the enfant terrible. I forget his name. Somebody in the chat. What's that guy's name? His idol is Jim Morrison. He looks like, when he was younger, he looked like Jim Morrison, this chef. He's English, and he was a chef in France. And his thing is that he carries like a giant, he carries a blade, a cooking knife, and he doesn't yell like Gordon Ramsay does, but instead he's like, yes, I could slice you and dice you and whip you into, and he like waves a knife right in your face. It's very, very intense. But there's a clip of it on YouTube where Gordon Ramsay's young in his kitchen, and the guy's like, you'll never be a chef. You're shit. And Gordon Ramsay cries. And so that's Gordon Ramsay's guy.
Wow.
So fancy chefs apparently have mind control handlers is the thing we're learning tonight, which I had no idea of that. I've never heard of this. I guess it makes sense. So Julia Child was in the OSS, so I guess the food world is run by MK Ultra too.
Well, the food critic in the movie, the lady at the table, her sin on the tortilla was getting other restaurants shut down, like Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah, Slowboy Whiteboard says it's Marco Pierre White. Yeah, and he still has shows. He's kind of a how Anthony Bourdain was one of these guys. In a different respect, he was a writer and stuff. But this enfant terrible, and actually, Ray Fiennes brings that up. That's one of his points. He says, it's when he has the sous chef come up, right, and he says he will never be great. He's very good, but he will. Do you want my life? And the guy's like, no, chef, because he says to be in this position, you have to sacrifice everything, right? You have to give your blood, sweat, and tears. You sacrifice your body, your relationships, your everything to please people that you will never see and you will never meet again. And so the sin for the woman, right, is that she supports him when he's great, but she also tears down everyone from this ivory tower. And the same thing occurs in that movie Birdman. Actually, he confronts the critic in the bar in that movie, the Michael Keaton movie. So I don't know, what were you going to say, Jamie?
No, I was thinking about Bourdain, but I was thinking that some people speculate that he might have had some intelligence work that he was doing under this cover of being this traveling, eating shitty food person or whatever his job was. I don't know. I mean, it seems plausible. I don't know if that's true, but he did have these weird connections. We did a Boiler Room on it back at the time where he was pretty close to Dario Argento's daughter, and they had these. I think they were dating, right? And they had these weird occultic looking foods, and they had tasted of like cannibal type things. So there's really weird stuff going on with Bourdain, but he's not technically a chef. So I was just trying to think of connections between the chef world and the intelligence world. Julia Child's the only one I can think of.
He was a chef. He
was.
Yeah, he was. He has that in the book called Kitchen Confidential. There's a movie with Bradley Cooper where he plays that character. And so what happened with Bourdain was that he became a chef in New York. He spent half his time in France. And then he he was he was a bad boy chef. So he got addicted to heroin, and he was into drugs. And then as his penance, he went down to like New Orleans and he shucked 5 million oysters or whatever, and then started from the bottom again. But yeah, it is weird that in the show he's like, I'm here with Papa Doc, right, in Haiti, and we're or whatever,
Well, there was the thing where they ate brains. I mean, it was all kinds of crazy stuff. We did a whole Boiler Room on it.
I wasn't laughing at Bourdain. I was laughing at. I thought Guy Fieri was the renegade chef, the bad boy.
He's probably on our side of things, right?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, we're going into Richmond, Virginia. We're going to eat a shitty burger, right? Yeah.
Well, that's another thing with the class warfare theme is that he serves no bread because bread is for common people, but also like bread is for religious purposes like daily bread and communion bread, right? So
yes, so you get no bread,
right,
just the little dots of color on the.
Well,
I
he
mean,
was
it was
making a
so-
statement of like, oh, yeah, he's sort of throwing it in the face of the elite that
you're too good for bread.
yeah, oh, you're too good for bread. We won't be serving you bread because you're that's how
Just
I took
imagine the bread and eat the jelly.
that. Yeah, right.
There's that scene reminded me of the scene at the start of the American Psycho movie, and it's in the book as well. But in the movie, they begin the film with that, which is they're playing classical music, and it's like drizzle on the plate, like it's an artwork, right? And that was at the time when '80s New York food was like minimalist, and then they say, the charcoal arugula and the mud soup is very, and so Bateman makes a habit of quoting food reviews like as part of the plot in the film. And so he speaks through music reviews and food reviews because that speaks to the elite and what the other people can't partake in.
Dorcia.
Yeah.
That's the restaurant they all want to go to in America.
No can do. Got an 8:30 res at Dorcia. Sea urchin ceviche. Right. Have you ever heard of that food, ortolan? You know what that is? That's probably the most decadent food. Ortolan is a bird, and to eat it, they like drown the bird in amaretto, and then they like resuscitate the bird.
What?
And then you eat the bird with a napkin over your head. I'm not kidding.
Why?
Yeah, like because to hide your sin. It's literally they do this in France at the Eyes Wide Shut parties. They have you can look it up. They have a napkin over their head and they're eating at a table, and the bird is like they're eating under the napkin. It's one of the decadent.
Well, it reminds me too of like those elite parties you see where there's naked bodies laid out with the food on the body, and so
right.
It's sort of like one theme that we're going to see in this. What I think is in the menu is that the elite class is predatory. And so because they're feeding like predators on the working class and so forth, then Ray Fine wants to teach a lesson and say that, I'm going to feed on you. I'm basically going to make you all into s'mores. So,
yeah.
Somebody just posted a picture of a party that Neil Patrick Harris had back in the day when Amy Winehouse died. And there was like a life-size cake that looked like her corpse, and it was all zombie. It was really macabre.
Yeah. Yeah, there was the Marinka parties. Oh, Will Ferrell produced this, by the way.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Remember,
Cake,
he was at
human
that,
cake eating
right?
parties.
Exactly.
He was, yeah. He was at the Cakes of Light, human heads at the tables.
Yeah.
Thing. And what's another thing? So his continuous his conference. It's funny because Anya Taylor-Joy's character, he starts off and he says he has this monologue, right? He comes in and he claps as the start of the ceremony, and he says, tonight you do not eat, salivate, bloviate, like he's whatever. And then when he comes over to her and he confronts her, you haven't eaten a thing. She says, but you told me not to eat, which I thought was pretty good. And he goes, you know what I mean? He's thrown off guard. So I think at that point he knows you don't belong here.
Because he's not used to like common man sass. He's used to weird manners and beating around the bush about things.
Well, but the elite are very picky, and they wouldn't act that way.
Right.
Yeah. And what's her name in the movie? Forget her character's name. It's whatever.
Marigold?
Yeah, it's like
Morgan. No.
She's like
Margot.
Margot. Yes. Margot Robbie. He says, what's your name? She says Margot Robbie, and he says, I've fed a lot of Margot Robbies, and you're no Margot, right?
Yeah.
She has the bearing of someone who doesn't belong, because she doesn't acquiesce to the ritual and the of this like ceremony they're involved in. And the Hollywood guy, right? John Leguizamo is there, and that was great because his beef with him is he says, "My one day off in 33 years, I decided to go to the cinema and I saw a film, Mr. Sunshine. It was not sunny."
Yeah.
Right. And then his assistant, right, who's the girl, and they admit that they've been stealing from each other, right, is in their admission of guilt towards the end of the film. But he says to her, she says, "Why am I here?" And he's like, "You went to Brown University." And she says, "Yes." And he said, "Did you take out student loans?" And she says, "Yes." And he says, "You're gone."
Right. No, she said
That's
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, she said no.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because
right.
if she needed
that
student
makes
loans, then she was working class.
Right.
Makes sense. Yeah. So
Yeah.
he said, "It's over for you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, something like that.
And they were just like, yeah, I guess so.
Yes. Yeah, the lady outside, who's the lady from Ozark. Remember, she was the lawyer. I don't know if you guys seen Ozark, but she's the lawyer for the cartel, Ozark. She says, "We're gonna die tonight." And the simp says, "Oh, definitely."
Yeah.
And that's when they go into the most dangerous game, which I thought was interesting because they walked outside. "Let's take the night air." Men, you have a 45-second head start. So it becomes the most dangerous game. I thought they were going to kill him there. And, so now we're hunting human beings. Right.
Well, it's interesting that when the guy unalives himself, they don't really believe it's happening. Like the whole time, it doesn't occur to them that this is actually real because they've been privileged.
Yeah. Everything is sort of, it's part of the performance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. No, this is the performance, even though there is a guy who's a performer.
Benefit, right? Like even
right.
Moxu, can't say that.
Yeah, it's okay. There's a Hollywood guy there, right? And he's like, "What are you talking about? This is not a performance." And it is a performance. I mean, it is a performance. And the way that like when he does that, they have a mat laid out on the ground, like with sprigs of, like that's the plate, right?
Mm-hmm.
His speech, his mother is there, right? And he tells that story about the awful story about, my father had a telephone cord, right? And they served the chicken with scissors in it, like on the telephone cord. But suffice it to say, all that happens, and then he gives Margot a chance, right, to go and get the whatever. So she leaves the home and goes and finds the CB radio, which is also another element of tricking them, right? You think you're going to get help, but you're all going to die here. And that's when she kills Inga or whatever, who now there's a power struggle. So his assistant thinks she's going to take her place. And then there's the fallen angel ceremony, right, with the Peter Thiel angel investor who there are no substitutions.
Oh yeah.
Yes. He dared to, he was investing. He kept him going through Karanka, and he dared to ask for substitutions, right, with his meal. How dare he?
One thing I didn't understand also, you could probably help me understand this from a narrative perspective, is why did he tell one of the underling chef ladies that she could stab him in the leg because he tried to sleep with her and she said no? Is it just to show that he's kind of an unhinged character, but he has this weird sense of justice? Why do you think he did that? Because they used the scissors to do that. Yeah,
I thought that was his. So first of all, he's the father to these people who kind of worship him like a father, right?
Okay.
And it's a mirror of what he did to his father. It's also it's a penance because he shows, and he has no pain. Remember, he talks about how I can grab a scalding pan and fire. He can grab fire, and I feel no pain. But I also thought it was weird. The last time I watched it, I thought there was some sort of weird kind of like almost like a Fisher King symbolism here, like because they're on this island and it's abundant, and the Fisher King in the Arthurian legends, the Fisher King is stabbed in the thigh or in the groin, and he has to be rejuvenated, through the Holy Grail. And when he it comes back, when he experiences life again, which is in the Arthurian lore, it's a spiritual life. He partakes. I think the Grail is the Eucharist. When he partakes of the Eucharist, like the land will grow. But in this, it becomes more of like there are clear like Wicker Man illusions in this to me because the place is abundant because of him, but also but now at this point, like he's stabbed in the thigh and there's going to be death. So the fruits of his labor are death in this. Everyone's going to die.
Okay.
And the end of the film is a self-immolation, right? It's almost like a pagan sacrifice of these people, so that everything burns. And then she leaves to tell which is like classical, very classical, that she gets to leave and she's the one to tell the story of the thing that happened. We see the flames in the reflection of her eyes.
Yeah.
When she leaves. And that was very clever how they did that, right? How she appeals to his sense of innocence and joy and making food. There's no joy. She says it's all an intellectual activity.
Well, it's also we were talking about meals as covenant in biblical theology and traditional Western religion. Meals are seen as, with the divinity. You're even in a sense partaking of the divinity in terms of the Lord's Supper and whatnot. Here we have also a meal that is a cursed meal. And you get this in the New Testament as well, where Paul says, if you partake of the Eucharist unworthily, you partake to death and to damnation, to destruction. So you can actually have a cursed meal. And in the Old Testament, there's a situation where if Israel or one of the cities in Israel, if they fell into certain types of extreme idolatry, the city was to be hormah, which is a burnt offering, which is to be burned up, basically. So burnt offering is another type of ritual offering, like a covenantal meal. And here I think that this is the culmination of, like, these people are cursed, and so they're undergoing a kind of burnt offering.
Right. It's also on an island, which is interesting because a lot of times especially most dangerous game themes play out on islands. The island is, I mean, in the short story, that's specifically what it is. The guy falls off a boat. He crosses over the boundary, over the chasm, the abyss, right into this new world that is the guy wants to make it like a Zaroff, I think is his name. He wants to make it like a neo-Gnostic, a neo-Genesis where he controls everything, right? And
well, it's the same thing in Island of Dr. Moreau too.
Yes, yeah. And I suppose it's like, I don't know, or the island, right? Or even the Hunger Games, right? It's an other place. It's other. It's apart from everyone else, and you have to go. No one has access to it. It's isolated.
Why did you say chefs can be assassins? What does that mean?
Just that chefs can poison people. In the ancient medieval world, poisoning people was, a very common way to get rid of people. And so you had to have food tasters at court because it was so common that nobility and kings and queens could be poisoned that there was a guy tasked with specifically being the person that tasted the king's food.
It's in Hamlet. I mean, in Hamlet, it's the poison pearl in the wine. There's, Shakespeare wrote a play about, I mean, Titus Andronicus has this as a play where the climax of the play is that he gets back at the woman by the Gothic woman. Her sons have they've done something to his daughter. They cut off her hands, replaced them with tree stumps, and then cut out her tongue so she couldn't tell who did it to her. So they continue to live right there in the court with her. And so when Titus finds out about it, finally, he has them killed, and then he bakes them into pies and then feeds them to her mother. This isn't Shakespeare. Feeds it to her mother, who eats it, and he says, "You're eating your son," basically. And I actually thought with this movie, I thought,
what's in Fred?
Yeah.
I thought that this was the way the movie was going to go. When I saw the trailers for the movie when it first came out, I said, "Oh, this is clearly a cannibal movie," But it didn't turn out that way. It was more of it is, but it's figurative,
Yeah.
Well, it's about eating the rich.
Yeah.
Right? It's class warfare, and the rich can never be satisfied because he spent his whole life trying to please strangers, and you never can because that class of people is just, you can't please them.
Well, he realizes they're psychopaths in a way, or they're kind of like mini psychopaths. And so he snaps and is like, I'm going to out psychopath them all. And I'm going to show them what a true psychopath is, because I have the will to do what these people couldn't even do.
Yeah, it's interesting how she resolves it. I mean, the cheeseburger scene is first of all, this is the best cheeseburger I've ever seen since Pulp Fiction, right? With the big
It
kahuna
made me
burger.
hungry watching
It
Made her
made me
hungry.
I
so
want a
hungry.
burger now.
It made me hungry too. Yeah, the Wally burger, right? So she says, I want a cheeseburger, and his response is, I'll make you the best cheeseburger.
Big Kahuna Burger. Right.
Yeah.
She's like, I can have cheeseburger and live. Because
Where'd you get it? McDonald's, Wendy's, Big Kahuna Burger. Isn't
because
that a Hawaiian joint?
she's reminding him of the best time in his life when he was just a cheeseburger maker. Remember? Because she saw the picture of him flipping burgers, all happy.
And he's smiling.
Yeah.
He's smiling. He's
So
full of
that's when he
joy.
was actually cooking food with happiness. And now all of the joy is taken out of it. And they even make a point to say that you don't cook with the most important ingredient. And he's like, we always cook with love.
Right.
Remember?
Right. Yes. We all. Yes. Yes. We
So
always
basically-
cook with love.
Yeah.
So Anya Taylor-Joy had to figure out his game and his psyche, right?
Yes.
And that's how she ends up saved. She's the only one that makes it out. And but I still didn't even exactly understand what she figured out. I mean, she figured out he's working class and that he could never please these people, and he didn't get respect that he felt like he always deserved. But how did what she asked for get her off of the island?
Well, because when first of all, they have to go to the other place to get there, right? So that's foreign to her.
Wait.
In the
Is
first
it
place.
because, let me ask you this, is it because she figured out that his happiest time, like you said, was when he was cooking hamburgers when he was young, and then he got into being an elite chef, and he's miserable because he can never please these people, but he pleased the people when he was just feeding the working class hamburgers?
Exactly. And so the rich people represent the ruin of his art.
I see. Yeah.
And the waste of his
That
life.
makes sense.
Like he
And she
could have
figured
been
that
feeding.
she figured that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she stands up to him. It's funny how she stands up to him because she says, I don't like your food. And no one says that to him.
Yeah,
right?
especially in these elite circles. Yeah.
Yeah, so she confronts him, and you can see that he respects her for saying it. He's like, what about it? Don't you like? And then she asks, he says, we can make you anything. And he's telling the truth. They can make anything. They have access to anything, and they make it there. Right. So they can feed anybody, anything, anywhere. And she says, I want a cheeseburger, which no one ever asked for at this place. And then when she says, she uses all of the normal language that we do when we go to a place that these people never do, which is, my eyes were bigger than my stomach. Do you think I could take it? Can I get a doggy bag?
Get it to go.
You can imagine, no one says that to this guy, right? A doggy bag. Right? And he says, so I think we can box. Even when he says, would you like fries with that? And she's like, yes. And he's like, crinkled cut. He says,
or
crinkled
Julianne.
cut. Or Julianne.
Yeah.
Is the fryer still on? Right.
Yeah. Yes, chef.
Yes. So that's her way. And you can see it in his eyes. I really like Ray Fiennes. I mean, what's interesting about this is that Ray Fiennes went to RADA, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. He's an Oscar-winning actor. He's an English stage actor. He was known for playing Hamlet when he was younger. He and Daniel Day-Lewis both had these attacks on stage in the West End in London of seeing their dead father on stage as the ghost of Hamlet, and having like a sort of mental breakdown. But it's interesting because he's also British establishment. His uncle is Ranulph Fiennes, who was British SAS and was a member of that secret club. It's a stupid name, but they're called the Feathermen. And the Feathermen is a group of ex-SAS guys who are contracted out to places and look after each other. And it's because they write their things with a feather quill pen and have their meetings. Movie Killer, this is real. There's a movie, Killer Elite, which not a lot of people have seen. Yes, that's him. He's in the movie.
Was Christopher Lee in this?
I don't know. He might have been.
Well, he was a SAS assassin. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you know too that one of the fine? It's one of the fine. There's another one, not Joseph. I think there's a third one, and he's Orthodox.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, one of them converted years ago. It's either Joseph or the other one.
Yeah, Joseph was in Shakespeare in Love. He's a good actor, but Ray Fiennes, and Ray Fiennes made his role in the Schindler movie, right? As the ultimate bad guy. He's a I don't know. I like him.
Lord Voldemort.
He's yes. He's great because this isn't really. I mean, just from an acting thing, this isn't like ironically, it's not like a meaty role, right? There's not a lot for him to do. He's in one place the whole movie. He has like an office scene with her, and there's not a lot going on. So it's almost like a play, but everything is sort of packed into his character, almost like the flavors. That's probably too far, but like packed into the food, right? I mean, so you see it in his eyes, and it's interesting because most of these characters that are like these psychopath characters in films, it's like they have this dead-eyed, black pupiled look, but he doesn't have that in this
That's
film.
a good point. Yeah.
So anyway, in the end, the place blows up and she gets away, and she keeps her humanity, I suppose.
What do you think is the overall point of the satire here?
Well, I think that I think it's the class warfare is I think there are a number of elements. One, there's class warfare, but it's almost like a meta satire of class warfare where it almost seems to be so obvious in the film that it twists back on itself. And I don't really know how to explain that other than to say that that just because the working class hero woman, and she's like truly working, she's a working girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because she wins in the end doesn't mean that she wins, and that we see a dichotomy where like there's a good side and a bad side. They all end up dying. And that there's a self-immolation where to me, it's almost like, does this mean that the system is going to burn from the inside? Because it's like Rome, it's like you could see this same thing happening in ancient Rome. They're so decadent that they're just going to bring themselves down.
It's
there's
also
no outside force.
Don't forget the Rahab element, right? Because Rahab is the whore in the Old Testament who understands that the city is going to be destroyed. And because she has faith, she's saved, even though she's immoral, but she believes and she's saved, through fire, basically, you could say.
They're purified by fire.
So she's basically a kind of a Rahab character as well.
Yeah.
And they're a burnt offering.
That's what I said.
Yeah, sacrifice.
Yeah,
well,
it shows that
in the Rahab story, the city's destroyed and she makes it out. She's the whore that survives.
There's also the other obvious element of the meta film critique, right? Which is like the Hollywood guy is not to be taken seriously. His career is vapid and nothing, and yet we're watching a film about the characters. Also that, I don't like to take like lessons away from these things because I don't think it's a lesson in the sense that, there's a moral. But I think that there's something to be said for the fact that we do get that it shows that the people who are, usually we see, especially in literature, that characters who are willing to give everything for their art or for a cause or, because they're a military hero, are noble characters, right? They're willing to give up their lives, either it's a literal sacrifice of themselves for someone else, or all of their time and their relationships. I mean, we see this with Mozart, right? Or with the great artists, like they have no life, but the thing they created will live forever. But in this, we see that we're also being told that like there's one guy, all the rest of these people who think they have a shot at this are not going to make it, and that they're willing to sacrifice themselves, but for nothing, because nobody will remember them. And even he doesn't want to be, does he even want to be remembered? I mean, I don't even know if he gives an indication of that. He's just done. He's just tired. It's almost totally nihilistic. He just wants it all to burn.
Yeah.
So
he just wants it all to burn. Yeah.
Yeah. So should we move on to the next one?
Yeah.
You guys like and share out there. Like and share. Make sure you hit that like. And if you want to support, you can support me with the direct links right there that my homeboys are dropping in the chat. And also you can go to the video description and the channel description. You can support me anytime. You can also super chat. You can donut chat, ask Jay and Jamie a question. They're here. They're here for you. Ask them a question. They'll read it. They'll read it. And they'll maybe answer it on screen. So Ask him a Spooktober question. And shouts
I
out
didn't
to
think
people
about
who
that.
didn't
I
hear.
hope that Rahab element just came to me. I hope that's an element that's worth mentioning because
Yeah.
you know a lot of Western literature. And I'm not saying this is Western literature, but any movie is still going to be influenced by classic Western literature. The Bible's a big part of that, and so a lot of great lit, especially Shakespeare, it's rife with esoteric ideas as well as biblical ideas.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of these stories from the Old Testament, we can't forget those because then I watched this movie twice without realizing the Rahab element. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, the Bible is the foundation for the Western canon, for Western literature. Just alone with the simple fact that the Bible is the best-selling book of all time, continuously, even now, and that for a long time it's the only written word that anybody knew at all. So of course it's going to be, we're going to draw all of our stories and inspiration from the Bible, and so I think that's appropriate. I think that you could say like, oh, she represents the working class, the working girl, and is this saying that this is, I don't know, something about the great reset world that we live in where this is the noble character? But I don't think they're really doing that in this. I think it takes on more of a biblical bent where she clearly has, he says to her, do you enjoy your work? Right. I forgot. The other element is if they are looking at Ray Fiennes like a father and Nicholas Hoult is like a fatherless child and he wants to perform for his father, there's also the other element that I didn't even think of, which is how she recognizes the corporate guy, right? Because he was doing the activity with him off site. That was the picture. And you remember what she says that he said when she would have their trysts, that he did his pervert things, but he said, you're going to pretend you're my daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I think at that point in the office, Ray Fiennes is like, I don't need to know the details, but this is creepy enough, even for me.
Right.
Where this guy's got to go. I'm giving you an opportunity. No, we're all going to die, he says, but you get to choose.
Yeah.
But then he does. He lets her go. So she becomes like a surrogate daughter. Anyway, yeah. So what's next? You want to do Flesh?
Get Out or Flesh?
Let's do Flesh.
Oh, okay.
Let's do Flesh because Get Out is the.
This one was. I almost had to not watch it. It was almost too gross for me.
Yeah. Get Out is a good one to end with because we're going to get out. And it's probably the best and the most well-known of the films. But this movie, if people haven't seen this movie, it's called Fresh. And I got this one on as a recommendation from our homeboy Jethro out there. I finally watched it, and it's got Sebastian Stan and this actress. And I was not looking forward to watching the movie because I don't like, I'm just like anybody else. I don't like this theme. I didn't know how bad it was going to be. But I thought it was interesting.
When the economy collapses, they're going to eat your ass.
Like Alex says.
Yeah. I'm looking at my neighbor. I'm going to chop him up and dice him. Yeah.
Hold him up. That chain. Yeah. I will eat your butt. And
he literally does that.
Well, that's funny because was this kind of a satire too? It was. I got elements of American Psycho in it, right? So it's like American Psycho satire meets Jeffrey Badonkadonk,
and it's a dating hookup cautionary tale.
It's a lot of things. It's also the one thing that bugged me about it was that it's kind of a woke horror. I'm really annoyed with woke horror. We talked about that with PSYOP cinema, and here it's woke horror because we have basically single white males are all these sort of, Jeffrey Badonkadonk predators who are just really there to prey on women. And here preying on women takes on a double sense, right? Women are not just meat for the sex market. They're also literally meat in this weird underground cult. And we find out, if you notice the symbolism, it's very clear. There's a Baphomet goat head with an all-seeing eye here that is this club that pays high price for these fresh meat ladies that this dude sort of recruits from in-person spit and game, right? So she goes out with this soy man that she meets on Tinder, he's an annoying city, scarf wearing dude talking about, oh, could I get some bubbling water sparkling, please?
Yeah. And he wants to go 50-50.
He's like, can you pay?
Yes.
Right.
And she just can't stand this dude. He's like, you should wear a dress. And so she's like, I'm done. And her sassy black friend's like, girl, you need to find you a better man than that. And then she meets this guy in the grocery store, and he's all suave and he's spitting some, awkward, jokey game, and it works. And so he's
like the king of the awkward.
He's read her as a girl that would like that kind of game, right? Because of the way she's dressed and she's kind of quirky and hipsterish. She's not that interested in looking like a woman. She's wearing a baggy, sweater, and he can, see that she's sort of the artsy type. So he plays that kind of a game and it works. And then, of course, we know that from that point on, like, things are getting worse and worse. She doesn't see. One thing I liked about the first part of this is that a lot of times movies like this, they give too many red flags that the character willingly ignores. But here we don't really get many red flags. The only red flag that we really get is that the sassy black girlfriend says, he ain't got no social media. Girl, that's weird. But that's about it, right?
Well, the red flag is that it's going too well and that they have too much chemistry, because all the other men from, Tinder and stuff is all like, DICK pics and please show Bobs. And
please show Bobs and Bajin.
Yeah. And this guy, he's like good looking, he's a cosmetic surgeon, but he's also sensitive. So he's got money and
he plays it well. Like, he's like, yeah, I'm a plastic surgeon. And she's like, oh, he's got money. But then she's like, but he's going to be vain. He's like, but yeah, it feels really good to help the kids that get burned when they come in.
Yes. Which was the same thing Bateman says in American Psycho. He says, what do you want to do with your life? And don't say helping children, please. Right? And that's what he does. But it is clever because the movie is kind of divided into thirds. We don't get the credits for the movie until I think 33 minutes into the movie. And everything that should be a red flag we see is acceptable for her because of what she's been put through in the modern, dating world. Right. It's also interesting that the guy is that the bad guy is actually soy, right? He's I don't eat meat. Oh, you can eat it, but I don't eat
animals.
Oh, I don't eat animals. That's right. Yeah.
Oh,
good point.
Meat, just not.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he eats human prosciutto. It's just
and she doesn't believe in love. So she's letting him, kind of sweep her off her feet, because anybody who says that is just like craving to fall in love. Right? Like anyone who says I don't need a man is super lonely. And
I don't need no man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this guy's I'm saying he's adept enough at psychology to figure out the kind of person that's perfect for.
Yeah. All of the things that he does are very Bundy-esque, right? Because he keeps all of her, later we're going to see that he keeps all of the trophies, right? And that he almost, at times he looks to me like Bundy was described, right? He's wearing the turtleneck,
right?
And he's very sort of outgoing and people saw him as dashing or whatever, but he's also probing her for things. So for instance, he finds out she has no family like right away.
Yeah.
So that means no one's going to be looking for her. Right. And also the guy in the Chinese place was, I thought this was interesting. This is a woke take on how this guy was named Chad, right? First of all, he was a Chad, but he was no Chad, and he's got a scarf, and he's like, oh, you should wear a dress. You should be traditional. He talks to remember how he talks to the waitress? Do you? Yeah, you were just saying,
do you understand
have bubbly
water? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then he appears later at the end of the film, right?
He does?
In the text. Yeah, in the text.
Like, hey, what are you doing?
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, Chad, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Also, she goes on the date with the guy and parks in the sketchiest, darkest terror tunnel alley ever, and is scared of the guy walking behind her. But it turns out to be,
with a baby?
Xi Jinping with a baby, right? And she's like, oh, and then there's a Chekhov's gun, right? Because she has her keys like a weapon, and then that'll appear later in the film. That'll pop back up, which is weird. But yeah, when she meets him, it's also the grapes, right? It's the He
Yeah.
feeds her, it's the grape
Mhm.
tasting in the grocery store. The grocery store, I forget what the grocery store was called, but when they were talking, there was a sign above them that said fresh meat, right? At weird angles. This movie was great because they do this thing that Kubrick did in The Shining. A lot of people do this, but where we see like straight angles and we're at right angles and everything's fine. And that means psychology is great. Everything's going great. But then it gets skewed and at like 45-degree angles when things aren't going right.
Mm.
He's also like, it's just like in The Invitation, he's wearing like a brown corduroy jacket. He's kind of soft. He's mute colored. He's not outlandish, right? They go out on their date. They go to the funky bar in public where, the guys, and then that was weird because her friend is friends with the bartender. And there's a scene where she's like, can't you give me the guy's name? He's here all the time. And he's like, I can't do that. I lose my job. And it's like, what are you talking about? You're a bartender. What are you talking about? Like, I thought that was very odd. And he shows up.
I thought he was going to be in on it.
Me too. That's why I thought he wouldn't help her.
Yeah, he's got kind of.
Well, we saw that his wife was in on it, right? And then the black dude's like, I can't give that out. And I'm thinking, okay, he's in on it too, right? So I'm thinking it's going to be a network of people that works to get women or something.
Yeah.
Right. And so, no, go ahead, Jamie.
I was just going to say, they did one of those scenes that I hate in the movies where they're like kissing so hard that they wreck the hallway. I hate that.
They did the scene that I hate the most, which is she's talking to her friend on the phone and she's brushing her teeth forever.
Oh, yeah.
And she keeps the toothbrush in her mouth when she's walking around. It's
gross.
One thing that I noticed in this film that I didn't like was they intentionally have the sound to where you hear people chewing and smacking and making lip noises, and that's on purpose.
Yes.
And I found it very sort of disconcerting.
He was gonna turn it off when they were eating the boob. He was like, I don't know if I can.
Because you can hear him smacking, and he's talking about how it's fatty, and I'm like, all right, this is about to gross me out. But when powered through.
When the bartender was eating in his car and was eating that burger or
that
whatever.
Was gross. That grossed me out.
Yeah, close up of his lip.
That made her want to eat a hamburger.
Like, you're gross. You're not
I'm like, man, this movie is gross. But
I don't want a boob burger. I just want a regular.
This movie is gross. There are things about it that are interesting. It was clever in many ways. I don't know if I would recommend it, but like you said, it does kind of have that Shakespearean element with feeding people. Other people and as a kind of a own and haha got you.
Well, it was interesting. It wasn't just a cannibal cult. There was also a sexual element to it, and especially at the very end, there was like a gimp eating the meat.
Yeah, and what was interesting about that was that shouts out to Nico Pluto, by the way, who drops $200 and says, split this with Jay and Jamie. Okay, I will. Thank you, Nico Pluto. Wow. That's a big time super chat. Thank you. Appreciate that. There's a he goes on the date with her, then they sleep together, and it seems like it's going very well. It's obviously going too well for us, watching it. But it's going very well, and she wakes up next to him, he's still there in the morning, but then she snaps a picture of him, which I thought was the camera's right there in his face, dude.
Yeah, it was a little
it was odd. It was sort of voyeuristic. She sends it to her friend. Damn, don't he look good? She's like, I mean, I guess he look all right. I don't know.
I like when she said that you're dickmatized.
Yes.
Well, he again, he saw her as like perfect, right? So he found a girl that he knew, probably couldn't find a good guy. The guys in her circle are probably these soy beta bug men in the city. So he knew all the ways to really rope her in, and he did it perfectly.
Yeah,
he read her well, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that it turns out to be genuine, right? It's almost like
he kind of likes her. Yeah,
he does. Yeah, he's kind of hypnotized himself in a way that he actually really likes her. I mean, so they decide to go away, right? We're going to go away for the weekend to Cottage Grove. Oh, we want to go to Cottage Grove. And I'm like, what the fuck is Cottage Grove? But then I was like, is this Bohemian Grove? Or are they going?
Is that a real
thing? Going. I don't know. I guess it was just a stand-in for, it's a place outside of the city and nature. And we're going to get
and it sounds innocuous, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
It doesn't sound menacing. Oh, to the cottage, right? Cottage
Yeah.
core. It's safe, right?
Yeah. But he does the thing that is the red flag for all these movies, which is we're going, and then he shows up and says, "Oh, the traffic's too bad. We're going to go to my place." Like last minute change, right? Like Mr. Jingles walking out to the car. Hold on. No. So then they decide to go to his place, right? They get in the car, they're driving. Oh, there's no phone service there. Dude, there's phone service on top of mountains now. Like there's, of course,
Right.
this is older, but like, trees are 5 gut things now. So that's everywhere, especially at, like the guy's house. I mean, he's got Starlink, but he just turns it off, I guess. But they go to his house and he's got the brutalistic, dead tech, postmodern concrete bunker house with the door in a corner.
Yeah.
So it's at weird angles and you're walking into some sort of temple.
And he has weird artworks too. Like one of the artworks was ghosts playing chess and with the Grim Reaper in it.
Yeah, it's very trippy, satanic looking art. It reminded me of the art that Kevorkian does. If you've ever seen Kevorkian, Dr. Jack Kevorkian, Dr. Death, he did a bunch of art, and it's very similar to the art in this.
He's a lot like American Psycho also.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
The guy in Fresh.
That's what I just said.
Yeah. We
said that in the last one we were talking about American Psycho.
No, but I said that this guy's like American Psycho. At the beginning of this, you weren't listening because Jamie doesn't listen to all the stuff that I say in the movie reviews, and then like 5 minutes later she'll say, "Oh, and blah blah blah." I'm like, "You didn't hear me say that 5 minutes ago?"
I'm trying to figure out what I need to say.
Well, there's one thing. So y'all have talked about this when she walks in and she's looking at the art and she sees the postmodern abstract expressionist Jackson Pollock-esque painting. There are the other paintings, but there's the one.
Yeah.
And when she gets up close to it and like she gets very close to the painting, and I was thinking, is this flesh?
Yeah,
is this skin?
You're supposed to think it's flesh, exactly.
Yeah. And then of course, it's a cool place, I guess. That he has. He's got money, and it's cool for him or whatever. It actually reminded me of the what's the guy Del Toro. Guillermo del Toro came out with a series last year.
Yeah,
the last movie. Yeah, the Panos Cosmatos one was at the end, and it looks like that place. It's like muted colors and mid-century or whatever.
Remember where a bunch of stars go and they are at this hip cool place.
They do space cocaine,
and then there's like an egg of an alien.
Yeah,
you do. We watched the whole series.
Yeah, they do frosty space cocaine or whatever. And it turns kind of into a Mandy world. But in this one, it's like she's walking through, and it's very like Frank Lloyd Wright. It's built into the landscape, and there are windows with greenery, but it's like outside of the house, so it's in some sort of other structure.
We watched that.
She's not remembering. Cabinet of Curiosities, episode 7 is the one where is it Peter Weller plays a rock star?
Yeah.
And they're like, come to this meeting, remember? And they're all just kind of sitting around in this room, and they're all invited there to this event, and they're all sitting around the circle, and then it ends up being, he's like, I got to show you this, and then what he shows him is this alien egg that's morphing, right? And it morphs into that.
Yeah,
you've seen that one, right?
Yeah, globular Lucifer, a demon alien in an egg.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
So it's like a Frank Lloyd Wright kind of house. And then they turn on some tunes, and they sit down, they have a drink, and then of course she starts getting, we see the camera starts getting hazy and woozy. Bad move, right? He goes over to his little bar car. I don't know about y'all, but like whenever I say people, they do this in movies. They always come into the office or come into home, and I'll make you a drink. And it's like there's a bar cart there, but nobody does that. I guess people do it in real life, like when they're having a party. But
Mad Men, dude.
Yeah,
only in the 1950s. And if you watch 40s and 50s movies, every scene is that.
Yeah, I don't, but it's all ready to go. He's got ice in the tumbler. It's like what? So anyway, then she passes out, and then she wakes up, and she's in a concrete, corner cement room on a mattress, and he's sitting in the corner with a turtleneck on, and he tells her, it's so bad. This movie is clever because he's so bad. He's so twisted. This guy is evil, but they make it seem seductive in a way that other movies, you know, the Zac Efron Ted Bundy movie, it's like, oh, we're supposed to think he's seductive, you know, but this movie, it's like, no, this guy really does, like, you like him, like, but you don't, you can't like, you know. So he's sitting there and he's like, no, don't worry, I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to eat you slowly and sell your meat until eventually you die, which is way worse.
Yeah.
Right. And she's
Don't
changed.
worry. It'll be slow and painful instead of quick. And
and just like Patrick Bateman, like he's playing the most ridiculous, you know, Richard Marx love songs from the 90s, right?
Yes. And I'm not gonna lie, like I heard that song in the movie, and I've listened to the song a bunch of times since then. I'm like, you know, this is pretty good song now that it's been many years, you know, but it fits.
It's funny.
It is, and they're doing hand dancing, you know, and they have like I thought that's the scene where they dance, which is later on in the film, but I thought that scene was, you know, someone could do an analysis of just movie choreographed scenes, like where it doesn't fit in it, like in Ex Machina. Remember, I'm gonna tear up the fucking dance floor, dude, and they do that.
That was
that's a great scene. But yeah, so he says, I'm gonna sell your meat. Oh gosh, oh no, she's a commodity. And she's like, so she, you know, she kind of goes nuts. And this is also, you know, we've seen so much in the news of this in the past 10 years, you know, with the guy in Cleveland, the Ariel Castro guy with the people locked up in the basement and the woman who locked with her head in a box and all these terrible things. And now we get this version of it. And I mean, that was in Split, you know, people locked up in the basement. They're going to sell them. And when I was watching, I was thinking, like, this is probably going where I think it's going to go, but I wonder how they'll show this. And then when they showed it, like you said, they actually showed the montage of the people that he sells it to. So he wakes up in the morning and he has a dumbwaiter and he's got like a human leg, which is, oh my God, you know, and he starts dancing, cutting up the human leg, dancing to some music, throwing it in a Hello Fresh boxes with the trophies of the particular girls, and puts the seal on it. And like you said, it had the Baphomet with an all-seeing eye and an Ouroboros on it.
Yeah, an Ouroboros.
And then we see a montage of the elite guys, and that was interesting because in the Menu and like in Get Out, it was various strata of elites, right? There's like a Texas oil man. There's like an
Asian dude. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a creepy guy on a breathing machine. There's a guy licking the plate. You know, there's a Gil Bates guy.
There's a slave.
There's a guy
Mr.
wearing
Slave.
like a gimp outfit.
Yeah. And then he explains it to us. I thought that was interesting because it doesn't really function as exposition in the movie. It's unexpected. He explains his operation to her. You know, he says, I provide a service for the 1% of the 1%, and the people are so they're so sensory. They want the thing that nobody else can have, right? What did you think about the way that he explains how he got into it? Like how he says he was 19 and he first got into this and he had this secret that he couldn't tell anybody. I thought that was
Jeffrey D, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they were pulling from different
and Hannibal
serial killers and stories about, paying the elite. Eli Roth has a story where he says that he got the idea for Hostel because he had heard that when he was on some trip or somewhere in Thailand or something that the Thai elite actually do this. And he thought, oh, that'd be a great idea for a horror movie. And then if you notice in the second, I'm not a huge fan of Hostel, but in the second one, it's actually like you get the same Baphomet imagery, and there's a market where they sell the people, and some of the people in that market who have like this little device that only the zillionaires get, right? So they bid on the people that they want. And some of them bid to eat them, right? So if you notice in the second one, it's the same type of idea.
So it's like Taken, right? It's also like in Taken, how they have their auctions. And the other thing I thought was interesting was that the movie came out around the time of the revelations about the things they said about Armie Hammer, right? And I'd heard this for years about Armie Hammer and about Armand Hammer. And there was that book. There's a book, the expose of Armand Hammer, where it talks about that he was in SRA and involved in those things. And then the revelations came out about him. By the way, the documentary about that, if anybody's watching, like, don't watch it. It's it's a limb hang, because it tries to pin it on the fact that he was into S&M stuff. But they don't go into the things. They don't actually go into what is the things that he was into. And
Armin
he
or
had
Army? Which one?
Army Hammer,
Okay.
the actor.
Yeah.
And he had his secret Instagram, all this stuff. But this guy reminded me of him in the film because he kind of looks like him. He has that air, but he doesn't have the same pedigree that he did. So it's obviously not about him, but it reminded me of that kind of character where he says he experienced this thing when he was 19 and he had a secret he couldn't tell anybody. And there's a small community. And then he became a surgeon. And I guess he is a surgeon still during the day. I was wondering, how does he account for like the drugs, for instance? Right. And then I just thought, like, well, because his clientele controls those things. And so that's.
Yeah, I thought immediately, like, there's no way that he could be doing this without the wife being in on it. And so we pretty quickly see that she is in on it.
Well, you remember that scene where he comes in, he was like so tired and trying to tell her about his day because he has the day job and the night thing. And yeah. Did you remember that part where she ate the meatball and she saw the goat? And she saw the vision.
She was initiated, so right? She went through the initiation and got, So this is again like a covenant meal where instead of like the real presence of body and blood of Christ, it's like the satanic inversion of that, where you're feeding like Dracula on other human beings,
right?
In a predatory way. And here she's getting this sort of demonic enlightenment initiation, and it shows her kind of have this like flash of like seeing all these things, and she's initiated. So this is what it takes, though. So my reading of this was that, she's going to have to play his game, right? She's going to have to go through what he's gone through to beat him.
Yeah, she's got to freak out that she has Stockholm syndrome, but she's like playing 5D chess trying to.
She is, yeah. And she throws up. She we can see that it's a game. She got the secret message in the Mademoiselle or whatever, right? If you're reading this, he likes you. So the question is, like, so we find out that the person who wrote the message, they're on the wall, the trophy wall. We see that person, right? So we know that person is gone. And shouts out to Rachel out there, homegirl Rachel, Based Homeschool Mama. She said, "Do I have channel memberships?" I got them almost all the way set up. I just haven't launched it yet, but I'll be launching them soon. I just haven't done it yet. But we'll have different membership levels, YouTube membership levels launched. But I wondered about his wife. Because the girl goes looking, for a friend, and she shows up at the door of the house, and the way the woman, she asked the questions, get out of here, right? Like as if the woman looks like she's selling something. First of all, it's only Mormon white women that show up to sell things. That happened to me on a stream one time. They showed up at the door. It's not women that look like this. And she looking good. She take care of herself, and she show up, And she goes into the house, and immediately she's like, I think, your husband is might be involved with my friend. And the woman's like, "Oh, that's strange. Interesting. Do you want to come in?" It's very weird.
Yeah.
And then next we see her in the house, and she's got a glass of water, and the woman's not even in the room. Like, you're going to leave the stranger you just invited alone in your house in the other room. So that was odd. So and plus she was European and looked like she had a wig on. I just thought, this woman's in on it. Like, this is clearly the house is too perfect, and the kids are upstairs. This is too perfect, right?
Well, you're sitting there, and she's holding the glass, and you're like, "Don't drink it! Don't drink it!
Don't drink it!
Yeah,
don't drink that damn.
Yeah,
if it's bubbly and sparkling and it's purple, don't drink it, right?" So
it was this movie where I was like, "That's a good way to get somebody to drink your drugs. Like, ask them, do you taste something special in there?" And they keep taking sips, like, is it peach? Is it apricot? And he's like, "No, try again."
Nectarine.
So she just downs the whole cup of drugs.
Yeah, she wanted so badly for him to be Mr. Right.
Yeah,
but he was Mr. Wrong. So then Steve shows up at the house. By the way, he's not Steve. His name's Brendan, right? I'm Brendan.
The bartender?
You must have the husband. He shows up at the house.
Yeah.
I'm Brendan.
Right.
Yes, I'm here. And then she know the rules of the streets, right? She called the phone. Phone rings, right? And it says like, "Hi, I'm Steve Cannibal," right? And he answers the phone. You shouldn't have done that. Bitch, turn around.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Marinka is behind you with the vase or whatever, right? So she knocks her out. Then we see the skewed angle because now it's the view up from the trunk,
Mm.
right? Because we know she's in the trunk. So then my question was the next scene, because that goes on to her, the kidnapped girl playing the role of what does it taste like? And then the guy says, that's it. That's all you got. That was very clever, right? Give a little bit, but not too much. So then he comes home from work or whatever, and he cooks her the meal. And I thought the meal was going to be the friend.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. But it wasn't. Or maybe it
He
was.
had so much like meat stored though. He had way too much meat.
So much.
Yeah. That was way too many.
He's in the backyard chainsawing a rib cage.
Yeah.
Right. What the fuck? It's so gross, dude.
He only eats women. Right?
Yeah, he said that to her. He tells her, he's like, yeah, only women because they're the best.
Yeah. He has standards, right?
Yeah.
They taste better, he said.
Right. Yeah.
And they can't fight back, so that's probably why.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it reminds me of the Kurt Barker book that you told me to read, which I read, which is that, cannibalism would be gradually normalized as part of the overall satanic agenda. Yeah.
I've been saying that since 2015.
Well, we found old podcasts that we did about it.
Yeah. So this is going to be normalized, especially when the famine comes.
Yeah. The bugs and the human meat cubes and the slave slop.
Yeah.
Just turn into humans, I guess. But yeah. So I don't know. So he, what you were saying about the vision that she has when she takes the first bite, I thought it was kind of dream chromy. Because even though the movie is literally showing this, I still thought it was kind of a metaphor for the worst thing, right? Which was the energy, the stuff from the brain. Yeah, and
the eel juice from Cure for Wellness.
What do you mean?
He's talking about chrome.
Yeah. Yeah, because she has this vision of, because she goes into like another dimension, seeing, it's like she's leveled up or leveled down in the hell world, like with them.
Right.
And then I was like, is this guy gonna is he gonna get the kuru? Is he gonna be, rickety all around? And then he kind of explains that. He's like, no, it depends on how it's prepared, right?
Yeah.
He's a great chef, like in the menu. So he must boil out all the whatever. But then they have their love scene, right? They're dancing. They're dancing to Richard Marx, and they're going to sleep together. And she's not chained, right? She goes in the bathroom. Like he wants a relationship with her. We also saw the wife, by the way, at the house, who also is missing a leg. So then I wondered, was this lady? How did they meet? Was
She's the previous version of
Exactly.
Yes.
That's what I took it to mean too.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but then I was thinking like, or did she meet him through, I don't know. I was thinking this scenario, she meets him through plastic surgery, right? She's like, you're kind of sexy. By the way, I'm a European elite. My last name is Dutroux. And, you're into the same stuff as me. Do you want to get married?
Could be.
Yeah. But, so anyway, then
she seemed to be well connected because when she shows up, she's got that bodyguard dude with her, says, we need to take care of this. Yeah.
Yeah, bro, if the bodyguard shows up and he's got a French braid down to his shoes, like that's just like this guy's bad. That's not even, that's weird. They always have these little details of these people
weirdos,
where they got something weird, extra long fingernails or whatever.
Yeah.
They never explained what happened to that guy, did they?
I don't remember.
Yeah, he just pieced out.
Yeah. And so did the bartender.
Yeah, he totally pieced out.
He's like, I'm out of here.
He was like, I'm fucking going. I got my GTI. I'm leaving here. I got my
car. We did a cannibal show back when Jamie and I first met. It was one of our earliest podcasts, and we covered a bunch of different movies like Society, and we also covered Parents. Have you seen that? Yep. It's a great 80s B movie.
No, but I know it's got Randy Quaid, Star Whackers. in it. It's a Bob Balaban movie.
It's
I
about it's good. It's kind of like this. It's like a
Mhm.
campy, culty thing where they're trying to
Yeah.
get the kid to eat human meat.
Yeah.
They're trying to raise him to be the
A
cannibal.
cannibal, all right. So they're sort of
Mhm.
cannibal cult and the kid doesn't want to be a part of it.
I think the worst version of cannibal stuff is I did an analysis of Cormac McCarthy's The Road,
Yeah.
the book, and that is to me where the stuff ends up. With the world burning and it's so dark and so disturbing. But this one, plays on a kind of an artistic satire, and so they're about to make love, right? And she pulls a reverse John Wayne Bobbitt. She pulls a John Wayne Hobbit on him, and then he turns into the immediate monster. So we see glimpses of his face. I thought this was clever in the movie. It's very subtle, but people describe, how like Ted, Bundy's physiognomy would change, right? And he would turn into this monster. And he was involved did these kinds of activities, and he does that when this happens to him, right? He turns into kind of a ghoulish monster, and he says he's going to cut her heart out and all this stuff. And then she, I thought it was interesting how she went downstairs to rescue the other girls, right? And then they try and leave. And I thought this was cool how they fought back. It was pretty clever because they really, a third of the movie is fighting. And then they escape. One of the girls has no legs. She's got no ass. They walk out in the backyard, and then he's got a gun, right? He's firing into the wilderness. And he says, "You lied to me." Right. You lied.
Oh yeah. He was totally butthurt and betrayed, even though
there was two people butthurt in this, I guess.
Well, that was the least believable thing about the whole movie. You would die from a wound like that. You can't just lose your whole butt.
I don't understand how he did that, and then like a few days later she's up dancing with him. That seemed a little bizarre.
Well, because he's a Mr. Elite plastic surgeon. He cauterized. He said he cauterized the wound. He slops her butt into a bucket.
That's when he was like, no.
Yeah, and he's like, you need some more Demerol. That'll help. So that helped her, right? At least she's on drugs, I guess, having to go through this hell. But then they're out in the wilderness, right? And then the phone glow. She gets the phone, like as if she could use it, right? But she gets the phone, like just get rid of the guy altogether in one place, right? Don't try and escape into the woods. Like you got the meat tenderizer there. Come on, right?
That's the classic movie foil. Is like once you got him down, just finish him off, man.
Yeah. Well, another funny detail was how the friend was texting her, and it was clearly him replying on the phone. Right? She's like, "Where are you? I'm going after he's married," and he's like, "Oh, snaps. Really? What are you going to do?" ? So it was him replying in the text message. But anyway, then the wife shows up, and then that's when it really turned woke, because when she kills her with the shovel, right? She says, "You are the worst kind of woman." Right? The women should stick together. So they kill the woman. The Apache, Mr. Apache or whatever, pieces out, and that's it. I guess it's over. So that was fresh. Okay.
There was a couple loose ends, like the bodyguard, and I thought that they were going to run into the bartender in the driveway, and he was going to help him escape.
Well, I guess the bodyguard probably has to go back and let the pyramid people know what's going on, right? Because he also says at one point, he's like, "Yeah, you don't want to screw up the order with these people," or something like that. Like they want to eat this guy. Oh, I know what happened to him. She said when she found her husband, she said, "You need to put this body on ice."
Oh, okay.
So he was the next meal.
Right. And that's what you see at the end is the elite. Yeah.
Feasting.
They're feasting on him, I guess. Yes. So, okay. So, all right, y'all, like and share out there. We got one more movie to do here. And this is probably the most well-known and most successful of these movies. This is Get Out. This was Jordan Peele's first movie. He also did Us. You guys covered Us. And I just did the movie that he produced, which is the Candyman reboot, which I thought was surprisingly good. And he also did Nope, which was the fake alien movie. But this movie, I thought it was interesting that the movie proceeds are almost always, it's always fake numbers, right? Oh, the movie cost $300 million. Yeah, right. Well, this movie apparently, and it says this on the page that it cost $4.5 million to produce, and it made like 255 million. So I thought that was interesting. I never see that with movies, but it was very successful. And this is Jordan Peele's Get Out. So what do you guys think just right off the bat?
To me, I saw it when it came out, and I thought I focused on the MK Ultra elements.
Yeah.
Rewatching it, it felt very again woke horror, which is kind of annoying to me. Just as a film, though, I don't think it's a bad film. Some of the elements are kind of. I didn't really care for the ending, but overall, I thought it had some interesting themes and symbolic significance. I mean, he seems to really focus on these kind of apocalyptic horror themes in what he does. If you think about, especially something like Us, and there's elements of Us that I like. That's probably my favorite of his so far. I didn't think Nope was. Nope was okay. I thought it was. A lot of people think it's a really good film. I thought it was just kind of mediocre, but this one I actually kind of like it better than Nope. I think it's. What'd you say?
Well, I think it's I was thinking of Us when they had Hands Across America, right?
Yeah, I like
that was
that.
the cloning movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was I thought it was clever, it was pretty clever and original because it went to the place where I suppose when anybody watching this, anybody like that's into this kind of thing, you watch the trailer and you sort of know, you figure it's going to go to this place, but you don't really know if they're going to show it. And they actually did with this movie. And I thought it was pretty clever how they managed to get to that place. And
by show it, what do you mean?
Well, to show the actual, we're going to do MK Ultra,
like, to the nth degree.
We're gonna, we're gonna take,
yeah,
like it.
No, this is this is the actual this is like the Nazi experiment of putting the head of a dog on another body, right? That's one of the things they really did. But this is now they're gonna do it with humans.
Yeah, it was like Westworld season 2, right? We're gonna take the thing, and then somebody else is gonna inhabit your body to live forever, right? And they actually did. I couldn't believe that they showed that. I didn't, I thought, how are they going to, is it going to veer off and go somewhere else? Is it going to go too woke or whatever? But the first scene in the movie is interesting because the guy's walking down the street in the nice neighborhood, right? And he doesn't appear till much later in the film. But he's walking down the street. He's got a date or whatever. We don't know what's going on. And then the Porsche pulls up playing the Run Rabbit Run, the old 30s honky tonk music in a Porsche is not good. That's like
in the middle of the night in a rich neighborhood.
Yeah, it's like hearing somebody pull up listening to the La-Las in a van. And then so the van door, he backs up and he's like, oh fuck this, I'm out of here, right? He tries to turn around. The door opens up and we see a guy in a medieval helmet, put him in a chokehold, and then that's it, right? Yeah. Then we see a montage of this time the modern art is photography. So Jordan Peele does this a lot. He does this in Candyman too, which is an artist. An artist is the one who's supposed to be the conduit for our vision of the future, right? And the sort of the zeitgeist, I guess. And we see the pictures. We hear Childish Gambino. We hear Redbone playing. And then we see that his girlfriend is Brian Williams' daughter. I flew into Iraq under fire, right? What's the name of the girl?
I didn't realize that's Brian Williams' daughter. Okay.
Yeah, it's his daughter. Yeah.
That makes sense.
And she seems to be perfect, right? Again, she's also like when you go on the date and she's all smiles and she's saying everything right. It's just, I don't know.
She's like the guy from Fred.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fleck and Fred.
And so they're going to go away for the weekend to the horror hotel. And they do, and they get on the road. She's driving. He's got to text his homeboy who works for the TSA, right? He's gonna, he's the comic relief in the film, and they hit a deer, and you know, we see it's a tough scene. I hate scenes like this in films. But the deer pops up later in the film, right? When he's in the Ludovico technique chair looking at the eyes of the deer. So he's going to be the roadkill, right? Or something.
Yeah, and of
But
course she's not phased by it, and he sees that as a
Yeah.
little odd.
yeah,
That doesn't phase her. And then when they get there to the house and he meets the parents, the dad's like, "Oh yeah, we're overpopulated with deer. We got to get rid of them," which is a subtle hint that
It's like deer.
he thinks that black people, right?
Mm.
And then he says, "Oh yeah, we got a bunch of black mold in the basement." So he's dropping all these racist hints, right? The dad is.
yeah. The cop, I need to see your ID, right? Why do you need to see his ID? He's just the passenger. And then they get, but of course the dad covers it with the bullshit of, oh, my dad would have voted for Obama. Yeah, again, 3 times. Like, and it's like, okay. And he's got he's got his 50s Mad Men soy glasses.
Well, he's
on,
playing
right?
he's playing the white liberal, right? The upper
Yes.
class white liberal.
The pandering.
Did you recognize that actor? The dad?
But I don't remember what.
He's Bradley Whitford. He plays the guy. You remember the Adam Sandler movie, Billy Madison?
Yeah.
He's the villain in Billy Madison.
Okay.
Yes.
And they had to do the game show.
Yeah.
Right. And the wife, of course, is in another one of these movies, which is Bing John. Was she in? Yeah, she was in Bing John Malkovich, I think, which is another movie about inhabiting another person, right? The elites want to live forever, or whoever wants to live forever. So they so they're at the house, right? And they sit down, they have their little sit down. He's met the parents. And then all of a sudden, there's a party this weekend, and a train of black cars pulls up, which is very like they're all in black, like they're going to a funeral.
And red. Did you notice that?
Yeah, there's a lot of red.
Everybody wears red that has red on it.
And then also they point out that they're very concerned that he smokes, overly concerned. And he doesn't. He notices that it's odd, but he doesn't understand why. He's like, "Yeah, okay, well, I'm going to quit eventually." And they're like, "No, you need to quit now." And then this becomes the basis for her hypnosis, right? She hypnotizes. "Oh, I can hypnotize you and help you stop smoking." And he's like, "Oh, okay, whatever."
It's like, first of all, look, I'm going to keep smoking, all right. And the fact that you're telling me I need to quit means I'm going to keep going. And also, I just met your mom, and she's a hypnotist with a teacup. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Right. It's very
and the
weird.
brother is weird and calls him a beast and talks about his genetics. Remember?
The brother.
So Caleb, he wants to have like a UFC fight right away. He's like,
yeah. So Caleb Landry Jones shows up, and he's a lacrosse bro, by the way. He's fiddling with his lacrosse stick. I'm like, bro, this guy no lacrosse. I'm a lax bro. This guy's not a midi. All right, but he's a lax bro, right? And he's very aggressive. Right, he's the bad boy. He shows up late or whatever. He's clearly the guy that was in the weird night mask who kidnapped the other guy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he's the enforcer for the family, and then we also meet the maid, right? Who's probably the best part in the whole movie. Would you like some tea?
Yeah.
Right, and that's when we learn that it's the hypnotic thing is going to go with this, because when he takes the picture and flashes the camera, it triggers her back to reality. I guess she's been sucked back up out of the upside down, and the real person inside of her is,
Yeah.
The scary the scene in this that really bothered me is I hate movies where there's somebody running at you really fast. Right? The guy goes out in the dark, and the gardener's outside running right at him.
Yeah.
Right? That that bothers me.
Who we find out is the granddad, right?
Yes. The granddad from Seinfeld.
Yes. Yeah, so she's a hypnotist, and she's using forced association and trauma and put him in the sunken place.
Yeah.
I thought that was weird.
Well, that's to prepare him to be docile and controlled for the brain transplant.
But I don't understand, like, if they took his brain out, why is his consciousness still in there?
Because you're not just your brain. You're also, there's more to you. And that's why at one point they say, well, there's still a sliver of that person still in there.
Were they taking out the whole brain? I thought they were doing a kind of Drano thing where they were taking out the one chunk or one part. So his brain is still there functioning, but the part with his consciousness is being replaced.
I just thought it was like the tiny mustache man head
but it's the
transplant.
same. It functions as the same thing, though. Yeah, you're right. And what else happens? Yeah. So, like you were saying, Jamie, the forced he dissociates to the place where he's in the sunken place, which is a kind of hellish abyss full of the black goo world.
Mhm.
In a way, it's total darkness. It's Miltonian, right? He's in a total
the
darkness.
unconscious, which is the realm of the dead, the underworld.
Seeing life through a window. You remember when Kanye was talking about this all the time? He was bringing up the sunken, but they got me in the sunken place.
No, he said that.
Yeah, he said it a bunch of times. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, you can tell he just watched the movie and
right.
Yeah.
But
the TSA friend was joking about SEX cults, and then it come to find out that the first guy that got kidnapped was actually sold to old
boomer who wanted a house slave sex person.
Yeah. Remember?
Yeah, and we get the Tiresias character. We get the blind seer, right? So he's blind, but he wants to. I don't want any of that stuff. These people are racist. I want your high, man.
Yeah.
Right. He wants his artistic vision, but he meets all those, all the greatest generation or people there. Let's see your golf swing. Right. And the sexy woman, right? The woman, he's got big muscles. This is in right now. This is popular.
I want to know why he didn't leave way earlier, because everybody was acting sus from the very beginning. It's just
because he liked the girl and he thought, well, this is just her weird family. I like her enough. I'm going to put up with this. I just got to get through this weekend and then go home. But then eventually it's like, all right, no, I've had enough. It's time to get out of here. This is too much. Yeah. And then she's like, oh, sorry, I can't give you the keys.
But he feels responsible for his mom dying. That's his trauma, remember?
Yeah, that's what the mom already knew that about him, because the girlfriend had gotten all this out of him.
So he can't abandon his girlfriend with her weirdo family.
He wanted normality. He wanted structure and family. And aside from all the weirdness, it's like you don't want to believe. And the problem I have with these movies is that the person always experiences this disconnect because they don't want to be rude, right? The bad things are happening and you can see them happening, but you don't want to be rude and walk away. So you just want to stay and, it's not going to turn out that way, because it won't usually. But in this case, it does. And all the flags are there. And his friend is telling him, but even his friend telling him, these people are involved in a cult, that's what the white people do. Well, I mean, we can see that he's right. But you're not going to believe him in the same way that the cops didn't believe him when he went to the cops, because he makes the mistake of talking in a kind of schizo clownish way about when he starts dropping jokes, right? The friend, he's like, I work for the TSA, so we know more than you guys do, probably,
right?
And at that point they're like,
yeah.
And that was the same as in Fresh, right? Oh, so your friend went on a date out of town with their significant other, and now you're worried about him. Okay, sounds like
the cops are never going to believe you in horror world. Yeah, but I like the fact that when they do get him and they've got him, in the chair and they're making him watch the creepy instructional video about welcome. It's just like in the invitation. It's like, welcome. You might be wondering why you're sitting in this chair. He's like, well, my ancient order has figured out how to transfer consciousness, and he calls it an order. So we know it's actually a kind of a bloodline occult order here, which again is reminiscent of what some of the SS actually tried to do.
Well, he called it the coagula procedure,
right? But he says it's an order, and they do alchemy.
Yeah.
All hail the coagula. And he looks up.
Yeah. And turns out he's like the G. Maxwell character procuring victims, right? Just like
she's a sex honey. She's a honey trap to entrap the the next meat. And then he discovers that's the horror scene, is when he finds all the old pictures of all the other guys that she's seduced and brought out there.
Well, I thought it was interesting. So when he's on the TV explaining the whole thing, he's like, phase 1, hypnotism. phase 2 mental preparation, phase 3 transmutation. And this like overlays perfectly to culture creation and trauma-based mind control, and MK Ultra is the plan, like first hypnotize, then prepare, and then transmute.
The deer, I thought the deer had a, it's like, aside from him being the prey, right? And the overpopulation, I guess the deer is like, I was thinking about Robert Graves, and it's also in Arthurian stuff. The white hart they see, but they see the heart, the HART heart, right? Which functions as, again, it's like a psychopomp. It's a harbinger of like illumination. And that literally is what happens, because the guy is going to see, he's blind, but now he can see. But it's through stealing the corpus of someone else, and burying the other psyche inside of oneself, which I guess is what the psychiatrist is trying to say when she's like, the hypnotic part is like, oh, you've got this trauma buried inside of you. I'm going to help you realize it and be okay with it. But in reality, it's just a subversion of even that, right? Which is, we're just going to bury you inside this body.
Mm-hmm.
So he's, what happens? I mean, he's tied up, and then he finds the fuzz inside the old Sparky or whatever that he's tied to, and then he puts that in his ears. So now the psychic tap, which, by the way, would drive you insane anyway.
I did not like the scraping of the tea cup. Yeah. That drove me crazy.
Was the teacup like Alice in Wonderland?
Oh, good point.
So he's at the tea party, and he goes through the doorway into the dark. He's in the other side of the mirror.
Mm.
I mean, he's looking at the television, so that's the other side of the mirror also. Mm-hmm. He's looking at the image. He's constantly, all these movies are always constantly looking out the window, and the window functions like he's looking in the mirror at himself, but there's another world beyond it that he has to go out into. He goes out outside at night, and that's where the guy runs at him, and we're wondering we find out these people are all other victims of this. Again, we have weird, what's the girl listening to when she's on her computer, like looking for her next Tinder date? She's listening to like Belinda Carlisle or something.
Something ridiculous. Yeah. I've had the time of my life.
Yeah, that's right.
And I've never felt this way before. Yes, I swear it's so true. And I owe it all to you. Oh, I
hate Dirty Dancing.
Yeah, so
this is like exactly what a white girl would be listening to, right? Dirty Dancing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she wants to find her Swayze, right? But she's got, well, anyway. So she's already looking for the next victim, right?
She has changed her whole appearance and demeanor from like cool girl who doesn't mind dating black guys to super waspy, anal, like eating one piece of cereal at a time
with a glass of milk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well, she's prepping for the next person that she's gonna. Yeah.
And the brother is the assistant, right? He's the assistant downstairs. He's gonna come prep him, and he gets knocked out. Right. He's gonna come back. A true horror trope. He's gonna come back. But I like that the deer is also the deer with the deer antlers are a Chekhov's gun, right? We see the sharp objects on the wall, so that's gonna come back.
The deer head. Right.
Mm-hmm.
The trophy, mm-hmm. That's significant that he's going to lose his head.
Right. I forgot to mention in the last movie the keys that the girl has in the dark alleyway. She stabs the guy in the neck and the jugular with the keys, which was weird. But in this one, it's like, how is he going to get out of this? What's he going to use? Because you're always thinking of that in the movies. What's he going to use to get out? And he runs the guy through like a battering ram, but like with the, so. Take this head instead, I guess.
That would be so heavy, though. I don't know if you could run with a deer head.
They're not that heavy.
They're not?
No.
Oh.
No, this fella can handle
that. You could run with a deer head in your hands.
Yeah, well, especially if they're going to cut your head off and take your brain.
Well, my dad has a bunch of deer heads, so
yeah. Like if they're going to do that to you, like I'm picking up a safe and knocking it on the guy's head. I don't care what it is, right? I'm knocking this guy out, and he gets out, and then he. What does he do to the woman? I forget what he does to the woman. He's got to lunge for the teacup. Oh, the teacup's on the table. He's got to knock the teacup off the table. I forget how she dies. He takes care of the brother comes back to life. He bashes his head in. bashes his head. And then he gets in the car and goes out, and he runs over the woman, right? The woman, the weird woman. He puts her in the car, so he saves her.
That's grandma though.
Yeah,
Come to find
right.
out.
So I guess he's gonna go home and take some pictures of her, and then that'll flash her back to who she really is. And then what does the girl do? The girlfriend, she gets in the car. Oh, she got a gun.
Mm-hmm. She gets
Right,
a shotgun.
Yeah. And then he gets saved by the friend who shows up. Right, this kind of Deus Ex Machina, I guess, with the friend. I told you, bitches.
We wondered if there wasn't a cut scene because he just shows up in a cop car. Like, so there probably was a scene where he, grabbed a cop car and fled or something.
Right.
Because the cops wouldn't believe him.
Yeah.
Because in real life, the cops would have been with him.
So there had to be a scene that was cut or something.
Yeah. Like, I'm TSA and I'm like commandeering this thing.
I'm taking this motherfucker. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they drive off into the darkness and everything's all right.
Yeah.
So the destination was death for the other people, but thankfully, he escaped or whatever.
He got out.
And that's it. That's get out. He got out.
Yeah.
Right.
But also it's like people are in my head, get out of my head, right? So.
Yeah. Yeah. And they can put on some young boy in the car. They don't have to listen to, run, rabbit, run, which is interesting because the rabbit. Right. So they're going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Rabbit Run was also, you guys were talking about Witches of Eastwick the other night. And which John Updike wrote a book called Rabbit Run. Northeastern establishment mixed in with, Witches of Eastwick, which is in the book is literal witchcraft. They're actually performing witchcraft in the book. Yeah. It's a lot different.
Is the book kind of satire, or is it dark, or what's
the book is darker? Yeah, the book is way darker. And it's pretty clever. Because they, we know that the Jack Nicholson character in the book that shows up is clearly Satan. He shows up in a church, and he subverts the natural order of things. And they do have the religious character, but who is awake to this, but then the witches do spells and they kill her. And they're like overtly performing spells and doing kind of eyes wide shut things at the house. And then the point is that he subverts the order. They all kind of destroy themselves, and then he moves on to another place. And so it's a lot different from the film. They made it much more, try to make it much more playful in the film, but the book is not bad. I was surprised by how good the book was. But there's kind of you can't help but see a sort of reference into that, a literary reference, allusion into that with the song, even though it's not overt. That, there's a strata of society, and then he's escaping back into, I guess, urban modern world and leaving the elites to themselves. Because the other old people at the party are going to go on regardless. Right. So I guess they'll go on and live until their bodies die, or they find some other member of the coagula.
Right.
To help them keep going. But that's about it for those movies. Any takeaways? Anything else you guys want to?
No, I apologize. I'm this is my third stream today, so I'm just kind of like zombie mode.
It's Friday night. We do a little night streaming here. Thanks everybody. I really appreciate y'all. Y'all want to stick around for just a second while I do super chats real quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So real quick. So shouts out to Maddie out there at Digital Minefield, who drops $6.50 and says, for any spooky fiction books y'all recommend. Any spooky fiction books y'all recommend?
Spooky fiction.
Edgar Allan Poe.
There's that new season. What'd you say, Jamie?
Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood is spooky fiction.
I've been watching the Fall of the House of Usher. I made it through 2 episodes of the Netflix thing. It's, it's whatever. It's not Poe. It's supposed to be Poe, but it's elites having all the same things we've just described.
You remember R.L. Stein? I was all into spooky fiction when I was a kid, like Fear Street and Christopher Pike, those like young adult authors. What
about scary stories to tell in the dark? And the girl wears the necklace and then she takes it off and her head falls off. Do you remember that one? That was the one the monkey's paw was in. But yeah, the spookiest thing you read, I don't know. Read true books, I guess. Read that Manson book that I just covered. But yeah, thank you, Maddie. Really appreciate you for that. Shouts out to Rachel out there who sends $10 and says, epic collab. What were each of your favorite Halloween costumes from when you were a kid? Big hugs to you guys. All right, y'all. What's your favorite Halloween costume?
Dracula.
Nice.
I was Dracula like 5 years in a row.
You always want to be Dracula.
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to have Halloween, but when I grew up, I did it a couple times. One time I was Tinkerbell. One time I was Alice in Wonderland.
I was a vampire when I was 3, but I looked more like a little ghoulie with my teeth. But my favorite was Wolfman, or I was like a skeleton guy. I wore a black hoodie and had a skeleton face. That was pretty cool. Yo, shouts out to Buster, who sends $10 and says, really great show. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Shouts out to Kristen, who sends $5 and says, for a great stream, Jamie and Jay and guys. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Shouts out to Jason, who sends $10. No comment. Thank you so much, Jason. Really appreciate you, all you do. And let's check one more time. Let me check super chats real quick. We got a big super chat, so let me give a shouts out here to let's see. Oh my god, if I can even get to this. Well, I saw we got a $9.99 in there. And give me a second, you guys. And let me check the dono chat while that's going through. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. Really appreciate y'all, and I hope everybody has a good spooky season weekend. Shouts out to Heidi out there who sends $20 on donut chat. Says love y'all. Thank you, Heidi. Really appreciate you. Yo, shouts out to Bon Jovi 1912 who sends $50 on donut chat. No message. Wow, thank you so much.
That's very kind.
You racked up tonight.
Yeah, we did well. Thank goodness, because that dollar menu isn't $1 anymore. And I got to give a shout out before we go to one more time to Nico, if I can get to it, who dropped $199. It's $200. So shouts out to Nico out there. And sorry, my computer's slow. Here we go. Yeah, shouts out to Nico for that $200. Really appreciate you out there. And also got a couple of them here. Shouts out to Tyler, who sent. Did Tyler send this in this one? Shouts out to Tyler for $100. Cheers, Base. Been listening to you since I think Clockwork Orange. I think that was in the last one. Shouts out to Tyler anyway for that $100 in that last one. Shouts out to Jethro out there, who sends $9.99 and says, Jay, this one's for you. The first time I saw Hillary, she was stuffing babies into the carcass of a pumpkin.
It's a good Larry Nichols. Larry Nichols.
Yeah, Larry Nichols. That's from old school, from that $25,000 nerd stream that we did, that party that you did. And finally, shouts out to Marconius, who drops $5 and says support. So thank you, guys. That was very generous of you. Thank you so much. If you want to support Jay and Jamie, of course, you can go to Jamie's channel at Jamie Henshaw and watch her streams. We did our streams together on Peter Pan, and we're going to be doing DC architecture and Dinobots sometime soon in the future. Shouts out to Jay here. You can go to Jay Dyer and watch any of his streams. He did. This is his 3rd stream today, so we're thankful for these 2 that they came here. You can go and check out their books. Go to Jay's store. Go buy Jamie and Jamie's books. Anything else y'all want to say?
I have a live stream on Sunday at 5 Eastern. It's going to be a party.
My new cringecore song just dropped. It was actually something that somebody kind of put together and used some clips from me. So go check out the new reggae cringecore song that just dropped.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much. You can support me anytime. I love y'all. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you too for being here so much. I know everybody enjoyed it. All right, y'all. That's all we got.
Later.
Peace.